Hey guys, welcome to this complete beginner's guide for API and Postman. So if you're totally new to the field of API and if you don't know about anything, what API is, how API works, okay, so this guide is for absolute beginners, okay? So if you want to learn about servers and client, what is an API, how it works, okay, how API keys and authentication works for the developer point of view, how Postman is related to the server, and basically lot of details about API based URL endpoints, HTTP method, API testing, status error, and how to work with Postman from downloading the Postman and how you can just use it for the API testing with the APIs. Okay, so each and everything from scratch we will going to cover in this free course. So if you're interested, watch this free course from starting to end. It will really going to help you out. Hey guys, so welcome to this, absolute beginner's guide, okay, for the API, okay. So basically, this course will going to cover about the very basics of API, what basically API is, okay. So many people even don't know about the API. So in this free course, we will try our 100% to make you guys understand the concept of API. And another thing which we just want to tell you that this course is totally based on concepts. Okay, so basically here you will not going to learn like how to integrate API, authenticate, how to basically build API, nothing like that. Okay, we will just going to focus on the concept about what API is, or I can say what REST API is all about. Okay, but the concept, the main focus of this course will be only about the concept of API. Okay, and this is what we will going to cover. Before we just learn about API, okay, it's very much important to understand what is servers and client. Okay, these topics are very much important to understand before we just proceed with teaching you the concept of API. So see, there are basically two type of, you can say, the people. First is known as the client and another one is the server. Now whatever website you see, maybe let's say apple.com, this is the server. Okay, so this is the Apple server. Similarly, maybe you can just go to some Amazon's website, let's say primevideo.com. So this is the Prime Video server. You can think like that. Okay, now suppose if you just go to this website, that is KuKu courses. This is my website. If you just go to KuKu courses, now this is my website, and or you can say that this is KuKu courses server. So similarly, my friends, server are basically application. It can be also some application. Okay, for example, this apple.com is a website, so you can say it like a server. Okay, any website you can say like a server, or it can be maybe some application. Maybe it can be some application. For example, let's say I video editing. Suppose I just go to video editor and search for some application. For example, if I just go to this VN video editor, now this application also has their servers. So basically, whatever software you want to see, or whatever website you want to see, all of them have their own servers. Okay, from where they just run their business. For example, Apple has their own server, so with their server, they are just running this apple.com. Similarly, let's say Prime Video. So Prime Video also has their server, and on that server, they are running their Prime Video, okay, to run their business. Similarly, KuKu courses, they have also their own server, okay, and on their server, they are just running their website. Similarly, it can be any other application, maybe any app or any website. So anything can be server. So one thing you have understood is that there is always one server. Okay, there is always one server, and there is also a client. Now what is the client? Client is basically the person who want to access to the server. For example, let's say this is the MacBook. You can see that this is my MacBook. You can see my Mac Studio I have. This is my computer. You may have Windows computer, Linux computer, operating system, sorry, or whatever computer you have, or maybe your mobile phone. So those things are known as client. So client is basically the system which try to access to the server for the information. For example, you can see that suppose this is my computer, okay? Client is suppose my computer. My, let's say, Mac Studio. Okay, I have a Mac Studio. You can have your Windows computer. It can be, let's say, your mobile phone or anything. Okay. Now suppose this is my Mac Studio. Okay, so what I did now is that I just open Safari. Okay, Safari is the browser. In Safari, maybe I go to, let's say, Google. Okay, simple, nothing complicated. Okay, and now what I want is that I want to access to the server. Now suppose I want to visit to the Apple website. Okay, so now Apple has their own server, so I want to access to the Apple server. So what I will going to do now is very simple. I will just going to type, maybe, let's say, or in the browser, let's say apple.com maybe. Now what I am doing, see this Safari, basically with my computer. Okay, this Safari is in my computer, so I am right now client. Okay, I am a client, and as a client I am trying to access to Apple server. So what I am doing is that I am just typing apple.com, and when I will click on enter button, it will take me to the Apple's website. So now what I am doing as a client, I am able to access to the server of Apple. Okay, now maybe I can check for some information, data, and so on. So basically, just understand one thing what I did here. Okay, let me just explain you. So what I did here is that I went to, or basically I send as a client. Okay, my Mac Studio is a client. So as a client, I just send the request to the Apple server. So what I did is that I basically send the request, okay, to the Apple server. Okay, or in the world of API, we just say it like HTTP. Now what that is, we will going to discuss about that later on. But in nutshell, what I did is that with my client, okay, that is my Mac Studio, my computer, and with my computer I just access to the Apple server. And in return, what Apple server has given me, Apple server has opened their website for me, and from their website I can just check their product. Okay, so Apple server is giving me all the response. You can see it's giving me response in the form of data. It is, I'm just searching for iPad. Okay, so I visited to the Apple server and I'm searching for iPad. Now when I'm searching for iPad, so Apple is giving me response. Apple server is giving me response that in iPad there are plenty of iPads. Now suppose I, as a client, okay, I again send the request that I want to see more about this, let's say iPad Air. Now I will again go to the, or I can again request to the Apple server, and now Apple server will going to give me the response that okay, you try to visit to the iPad Air, here is the information. Okay, so Apple server is giving me response in the form of a data which I can understand. You can see like this product is from starting from this price and so on. So what Apple server is doing right now is that it is sending me the response. It is sending me the response. Okay, so this is what basically the client and server is all about. Okay, and this is what you have to understand before you just understand about API. We will now going to tell you about the API as well. But this is just a very basic example where we just guide you how the things work. That there are two persons, the client and the server. Okay. Understand what is an API. Okay, so it's very interesting part by the way. So to understand API, first of all, let me just write a very unique, a very basic meaning of API. So basically, API connect to application or more. Okay, this is known as API. So in very simple example, we just given you right now, that you can see that my Mac Studio, you can just say like application, because this Safari which I'm using, you can assume this as one application. Okay, so wait, let me just write it here. So this Safari in my computer, this Safari which I'm using, so you can just consider as application 1. Okay, and similarly in this example, the Apple, so you can say it like a Apple website, so you can just assume it as a application 2. Okay, so API basically means that it connect to application or more. Okay, now what is the purpose? So if you will going to notice here, what we are doing is that we are just sending the request to the server and server is giving us the response. So if I just tell you with the most easiest way, okay, I just do not want to go with the complicated meaning about what is an API from the internet. Okay, you will going to get a lot of information, but I just want you to be very much specific, okay, with practical example, total conceptual. So basically with the help of API, what we do is that we send the request. Okay, send the request. Okay, and receive response. This is known as API. Okay, so if you will going to notice here is that what we are doing here. So let me tell you. Okay, so what we are doing here, suppose as a client, okay, with my application one, that is the Safari, using my client. Okay, I am just saying to the Apple server, hey, what are products you have. I am saying to Apple server, so Apple is responding that we have a lot of products like iPhone, iPad, Macs. Okay, now suppose as a Safari application, I again send one request to the server. Now I can say, okay, tell me more about iPad. Okay, so now again I will send this request, okay, in the form of a data, okay, to the Apple server, and Apple server will going to say, okay, in iPad we have a lot of iPad, like you can see here, that Apple has a lot of iPad, like iPad, iPad Air, and Pro. So Apple will going to send me the response that, okay, if you want to look more about iPad, so we have more iPad like simple iPad, iPad Air, okay, iPad Pro. So what you want, so suppose I can so Apple will just going to give me the response, okay, again in the form of data. So if you will just going to uh, look the meaning again. Okay, so basically what we are doing is that from our application one, we are just sending the request to the server in the form of data. Okay, so you can just say like send request and receive response in form of data is known as API. So with the help of API, what we can do, my friends, is that we can just connect one application with another application, and we can just send the request and receive the response. So this is the purpose of API. So API basically help us to connect the two application and help us to send the request to the server, and from the server, with the help of API, we can just get the response. That's it. Okay, to the client. This is what API is in a very simple and very basic example. Okay, now after I will going to get, let's say, this information. So suppose the Safari, the application which we have, we will going to say that tell me more about, let's say, iPad Air. So again, I send the request, okay, as a client from my application Safari. I just send the request to the Apple server that, okay, tell me more about iPad Air. Okay, so Apple server will going to get the request. Now Apple server will going to send me the response again, and it will going to say that it will just going to tell about iPad Air, like what features it has, okay, what price it has, and etc, etc. So this is how the communication will going to happen, and this is what you can see that when as a Safari is my application, okay, and it's running from my client, that is my Mac Studio. And when I just go to the iPad, so I'm just sending the request to the Apple server. Now Apple server has given me the response, and it showed me that you have a lot of iPad, what iPad you want to learn about. Okay, so that response Apple has given me right now. Now suppose as a client, I will again going to send the request that I just want to look more about, let's say, iPad Air. Now Apple is, see, it's loading, and now Apple server has told me that, okay, you want to learn about iPad Air, here is the complete information about, iPad Air. You can just learn about the complete iPad, what information about okay, wait, what information about the iPad. So now Apple server has given me this response of iPad, and it is giving me complete information like the price, features, and so on. So this is what API is, my friend. So basically API helps to connect the two applications. Okay, it can be more application as well. We will going to show you the example later on. So with that, we can just send the request, and we can receive the response in the form of data with the help of API. Yes, we will going to take with some another example. Okay, let's just close all of them for now. Okay, so again, I'm with my client, that is with my Mac Studio, and again I'm using, let's say, Safari. So this will be my application one. Okay, so basically, wait, let me just show you guys. If I just show you the Safari, so suppose we all know that if we want to move from here and there, that means we want to travel. So we just look for some website. For example, let's say I'm in Mumbai, and maybe I want to visit to maybe let's say Mumbai to, let's say, California. Okay, flight. I will just going to search for this, and I will going to see a lot of companies. Okay, let's say this Make My Trip. So this type of a website helps you to, get the idea about which flights are available. And here you can see a lot of flights we have. Okay, like Indigo is one company, okay, that offers you this amount. Okay, and you can just travel from Mumbai to your destination, and it will going to cost you this much amount, and so on, with the prices as well. So there are plenty of the companies that are doing the same tasks. Now you can see the name of this website is Make My Trip. So let's take with one example. So suppose here again, one will be my client. Okay, that is my Mac Studio, that is my computer. Okay, and suppose it's we have a Safari as an application one. Okay, so Safari is basically the browser. Okay, it's an application. You can see browser application, and another, now in this case, is that the server. It will be Make My Trip will be the server. Okay. Now okay, wait, let me just try to make you guys understand. Okay, so the server here will be make my trip as a main server. Okay, it will be the main server. Wait, let me just decrease the size. Let's say server. Okay, make my trip, and this will be the make my trip website. You can just assume it like an application 2 maybe. Okay, like this. Okay, so till now you have understood. Okay, we are just going with the flight example. Okay, now here you will going to notice that Indigo. Now Indigo is another company. So if you just copy the Indigo, and if you just go click on enter button, and you can see, you can just go to indigo.com. Okay, wait, Indigo. Now they have their own website. So I can just say like earlier time when we were showing you with the Apple, they also have their website. So we assume it as a one server. Similarly, Make My Trip has one website. So we assume that the server is Make My Trip, or you can say application 2. Okay, Make My Trip, that is 3 website. Okay, we can just name it as application 2. Now similarly, if you will going to notice that here there's various company of flight like Indigo. So Indigo also have their own website. So I can also say that Indigo also has their own server. So what I can say now is that Indigo also has their server. So server is Indigo. This is airline company. Okay, and we can say that this is Indigo's website. Okay, and we can just say it like a application 3. Okay, now similarly you can see like Indigo, there are another companies as well. If you will going to notice Delta Airline, so this is also another company. I can just copy that, and if you just open this, you can just go to this delta.com. Now you will going to notice they also have their own website. Okay, delta.com. Okay, so similarly Delta will also going to have their own server. Now the server will be of Delta. This server is related to Delta, and sorry, Delta. Okay, and right now this will we have accessed the Delta website, and you can just say it as an application 4. Okay, let me just make it little bit up, this one over here. Okay, and similarly if you will going to notice there are more airlines. If I just go to Make My Trip, okay, Make My Trip server, you can see there is one company known as Virgin Atlantic. This is also a flight company. Let's go to this one. They also have their own website. You can see virginatlantic.com. Okay, this one, this website. Okay, that is Virgin Atlantic. So they also have their own website. So that means they also have one server. Okay, so wait, let me just copy this here. Now this server will be of Virgin, I guess, Atlantic. Okay, Atlantic Airlines, and Atlantic website you can just put it as a application 5. So now my friends, this is basically the thing we will now going to try to make you guys understand. Okay, now what happened is that Try to understand it very carefully. Okay, see what now is that I'm just trying to access the make my trip. So what I did is that I just open the browser, make my trip.com. Okay, make my trip.com. Okay, so basically from this client, that is my Mac Studio with my computer, it can be maybe your Windows application. Okay, and with my computer I'm using one application on a Safari. Safari is a browser like Google Chrome. Okay, Safari is also a browser. Okay, so I just name it as a application 1. Now let's say I just go to makemytrip.com. I will click on enter. Now what I did is that I just send the request to the make my trip server. Okay, so what I did now is that I just send the request to make my trip. Okay, like in the previous example, wait, let me just make it smaller. Okay, okay, so we just send the request to make my trip server. Okay, basically our application visited to the server of make my trip. Now in response make my trip has opened their complete website and it is giving us the data. Okay, so make my trip, what is happening here is that make my trip, wait, okay, so here you can see make my trip has given us the response. Okay, okay, by showing the information that is available to their website. Now if you will going to notice that when we basically search for Mumbai to, let's say, San Francisco. Okay, suppose we are going from Mumbai India to San Francisco in United States. So now what is happening here? So basically in my Safari what I did, suppose, is that I just send the request. Okay, I just sent the request and I said that I just want the flight from Mumbai to Francisco. I don't know the spelling, by the way. Okay, wait, let me just see the spelling. F-R-A-N, okay, C-I-S-C-O maybe. Okay, so Mumbai to France. Okay, so Mumbai to Francisco, I just send the request, okay, to the server, and in return, after understanding my request, the server has sent me the response. Okay, and the response he has shared me here. Okay, and in response he has shared me all the flights ticket. Okay, and in response what make my trip has given me is all the flight names. Okay, and the prices of that flight and many other information. Okay, so as a response, make my trip server has given you all this information. That's it. So this is what I want to teach you. So earlier also it was the same, we have shown you with the Apple example, and here also the things are going exactly the same as we taught you. Okay, but right now guys there is one small twist. So it's not always between the you as a client, okay, as a application 1 and of course application 2. There is not necessary there will be only 2%. If you will just going to see the meaning, what we have written with the meaning of an API, we just said in the very simplest way that API means it just connect to application or more, to application or more. So if you will going to notice now, what is happening is that, see, Make My Trip has connected their server with Indigo server. Okay. So now what happening is that whenever I'm just sending the request, okay, from my client, I'm just sending the request to the Make My Trip server. Now Make My Trip server don't have all the information, because see, like here you can see in the example, in all these companies, Indigo, Delta Airlines. So basically, Make My Trip don't have all this data. It's basically Indigo server is sending the data to Make My Trip that our price is this one from this time and so on. Similarly, Delta Airlines server is sending that information to Make My Trip that we have this flight time at this particular time, this is the price, and so on. Similarly, this Atlantic server is giving or sharing the data to Make My Trip and saying that currently we have this time available for travel and this is the price. So basically, I just want to make you understand one simple thing, that Make My Trip basically don't have all this data. It's basically using the API of Indigo. Okay. So basically what is happening, wait, let me just show you. So in nutshell, what is happening is that, like like our Safari application is sending the request to the Make My Trip server. So similarly, Make My Trip server is now sending the request to the Indigo, and it is asking, hey, there is one client and he is asking for the flight from Mumbai to Francisco. Okay, do you have that flight available? Now Indigo server will going to process that request. Okay, and it will say as a response, okay, basically Indigo will going to share that response to the Make My Trip, and when that will going to happen, Make My Trip will start to show that information here, and you can see that Indigo has started to show that information in the Make My Trip. So basically within the application, it is possible that that particular server has connected their server to other server as well, and this is how the API works. So similarly, suppose when as a client, okay, I use my Safari application and I just search for Mumbai to France, and I just again send that request to the Make My Trip. Now Make My Trip will going to send that same request to the Indigo. Similarly, it will just going to send that same request to basically Delta as well. Okay, and similarly that same request, this Make My Trip server will also going to send that same request to the Atlantic, like here. Okay, now Make My Trip will going to send the request that, hey, there is one client, he just asks for travel from Mumbai to flight, and it will just going to send that same request to other server of companies, okay, all the airline companies, Indigo, Delta, Atlantic, it can be many more. Here you will going to see if in the Safari that there are many other companies as well, like Virgin, like KLM, Royal, this is also another company. Okay, so there are plenty of other companies. So Make My Trip is acting as a middleman, okay, and it is trying to connect the API, okay, with the other servers as well. So now all these server of different airline company will going to process the request, okay, that there is one guy, okay, and he has requested for the flight from Mumbai to Francisco, and we got that request from Make My Trip, and that request will go to all these flights, and now these flights will going to process this request whether they have this flight available or not. And when they will going to process that thing, all these flights will going to share the response, like Indigo will going to share the response to Make My Trip, and similarly this Delta will also going to process the request, and it will just going to share that response, okay, that response to wait, let me just show you guys, okay, that response to Make My Trip. Similarly, Atlantic, we're also going to do that same task. Also Atlantic will also going to process this request from the Make My Trip, and it will going to process that request, and then it will just going to send the response about the final result, okay. Wait, let me just do this, okay. So when all these flights will going to process and send the response, so the response will be shown here to the server, like here we can see right now all the response. So these are basically the response from the Indigo server, which you can see here. So that's how, my friend, API works, okay. So this is how it is, and it can be even more complicated. Maybe Indigo is further using some other server to get the information and so on. So I just do not want to make it complex, but in nutshell, this is what happens, okay, in the backend. So of course you can see that in the browser also you can just see the things. For example, if you I'm not sure that will going to happen in the here, but you can just right click, okay, it's not allowing basically. Wait, let me just do one thing. Let me just okay, I just copy this URL, and let me just paste this URL to the Chrome. So the same thing you can see here. So basically you can see all those things here. Right click and click on inspect, and from the inspect go to the network, and go to this one XHR. So just refresh it, and you will going to notice all these are APIs, okay. So basically here you can see the information about the API, okay. So let's not go complicated here, this is a complex topic, but in nutshell, the concept which I just wanted to teach you is very simple. I just wanted to teach you that whenever we just try to send any request to any server, so that server could also send the request to their servers, okay, to get the response. And when the response will going to get from the server, that response will be shared to this server, and it can show you the response, okay. So you guys have basically understood what I mean to say. So this is how the API works. So basically here you can notice that we have written connect to application or more. So here in the previous example there were only two applications. You can see application 1 and application 2. Application 1 was Safari application, and another application was Apple's website application. So there were only two parties, but right now you can see there are plenty of parties. You can see My Safari as application 1. Now Make My Trip website, you can say the application 2. Indigo website is application 3. Delta website is application 4. Atlantic website can be let's say application 5. So you can see that there are more applications now, okay. 1 2 3 4 5, total 5 applications are working here. So that is the reason I written that API means where you just connect two applications or more, because in this example you can see there are more than two applications. Total there are 5 applications, and they are just connecting with each other, okay. So this is where the API is very helpful. Basically it helps you to connect two application or more, so that each of the application can send the request and receive the response in the form of data. And this is what happening as application 1 is sending the request to the application 2, and application 2 is sending the request, okay, sending the request to application 3 as well, application 4 as well, application 5 as well. And now after processing the request, now this application 3, application 4 and application 5 is sending the response, okay, all this response to again application 2, and application 2 is giving us that response in a Safari browser. And you can see this is where we can see in the Safari browser all the response. Okay, so this is what API is, and hope you guys have somehow got the more concept clear about what API is all about. Guys, we will just going to talk about API key and authentications, and I believe that for now you guys have got the good understanding about servers, client, and request and response, and how basically as a conceptual way how API works. Okay, so what you have learned till now is that there is one client, okay, and there is one server. Let me just copy this complete one, okay. And we are now talking especially about API keys and authentication, all right, you can say authorization. So this is the new topic we are about to cover, okay, and it is also a totally conceptual based as well, because this course, as we have mentioned, that this is only about the concepts and everything in practical how you can do that we will teach you from scratch as well, okay. At the end we will teach you whatever you have learned, how you can just do that practically as well, okay. But for now we want you to understand the concepts only. So you all know that there is client and there are servers, okay, and the client send the request to the server, and in return server process the request, and on that basis it just give the response, okay. So this is what you have learned till now. Now guys, one thing you always have to make sure that whenever we just talk about, connecting the two applications, so we need two things, okay. So wait, let me just show you. So we need some important things, like, let me show you. First is of course the API URL, okay. Okay, this is you can say, let's say, API key, and another one you may require is the API token as well, which is totally optional, okay. So in nutshell, API URL, and sometimes you require the API key and API token. So it's okay, so these are the things which you require, okay. So API URL looks like some URL, okay. It's look like some link, okay. We will going to show you how the API URL looks like, okay. So for every brand, every servers, API URLs are different, okay. Now another thing we require is the API key and API token. And why we require this thing? So that we can connect, the client and server. So this is the reason we require all these things. So first, always remember that to connect the client and the server, we require three things, that is API URL, API key, and API token. And token is not necessary for all of them, it's depend on the server, okay. And if the server says it's depend basically, okay, upon the server, okay. But one thing you always have to know is that this API URL and API key and API token, these are given by the server side, okay. So these are given by the server side. Wait, let me just write that. Okay, always learn this concept, okay, which is very much important for you to understand that this API URL key and token is given from the side of from the server side, okay. So wait, let me also write that as well for you guys so that you can always remember, okay. Let's say API key, or I can say API URL token, or API URL API key and API token is given from server side, okay. Always remember this thing, okay, which is kind of a very much important for you to know, okay. So that's how basically it works, okay. Now you are thinking that, okay, we have a server, and suppose I want to access any server, so I can directly use Safari and access to the server, okay. This is what you might be thinking. So that's possible, okay, no problem. But problem especially comes from the developer point of view. So API is basically used by developers, okay. Big companies, they all use this API key generally, okay. And I suppose that if you are watching this API course, so basically you have come here from the point of view of maybe developer who want to work with the API. So when we just say, like in now in my case, the client is my Mac Studio, my computer, but right now I'm using Safari, but it's not necessary always that it will be Safari, okay. So developers basically use, let's say, Python, okay. They use maybe Python, okay. Wait, let me just write that over here. So suppose it can be the Python, okay. So maybe you want to use Python for the project, okay. So your client can be the Python in this case. It can be Postman as well, okay. It can be Postman as well, okay. So it can be Postman as well, okay. So chances are there that the client can be different. So basically this is what developers use, Postman, Python for the coding and all. So when they use all this thing, it can be, let's say, Python. So you can, if you're, let's say, using Python, okay. So you can say Python is application one, you can just say like that, okay. If you're, let's say, using Postman, so you can just say it like application one. So that's totally depends. But when as a developer point of view, when we just try to access to the server, okay, suppose you're working with, let's say, Postman right now, okay. So suppose Postman can be your application one, okay. And this from the Postman, okay, suppose you want to access to this server, okay. So you always require this thing, that is API URL, API key and API token. So whatever server you want to use, so from that server you will going to get all that details. For example, you all know about ChatGPT, okay. ChatGPT, awesome, you all know that. So ChatGPT is created by which company? that is OpenAI. Okay, OpenAI.com has created the ChatGPT. Okay, and you can see that their products have, here you can see ChatGPT, API, and all these things are their product. So let's say you want to use OpenAI. So let's say the server will be, let's say, OpenAI. Okay, and here we have a OpenAI website. Okay, so server is now OpenAI. Okay, okay, so OpenAI website will become, let's say, assume it as an application 2. It's application 2 for us. And another one is the Postman. Okay, let's say Postman. Okay, so Postman is another application. Okay, which we have set it as application 1, that is the Postman. Do not worry what are all these things. Okay, you do not have to worry about anything, but just understand one thing, that you always have one client and one server. And as a developer point of view, if you want to, let's say, access to the OpenAI server, okay, so you may require the open AI, okay, API URL, key, and token. So this thing, always keep that thing in mind. And OpenAI, if so, and suppose as a client, okay, let's say we are using Postman, and let's say we require, we want to access to the server of OpenAI. So OpenAI will only going to provide us this details about API URL and key and so on, right? So this is what I just want to explain you about this concept. Okay, okay, so this is all about API keys and authorization. Okay, from the point of view of developers. Now guys, we will going to talk about the types of API. So we have different types of API. Okay, first type of a API, you can say it like, it's a, private API. Okay, private API. Okay, another type of a API we have, wait, let me just make it a little bit down. Okay, private API. Then another type of API we have is the public API. And this public API, some can be free. Okay, and the last type of another API we have is the same public API but paid. Okay, so these are the, three types of API. Okay, now what is the difference? So first is the private API. Now what is the private API? So suppose if you just go to my website, that is KuKu courses, just search for KuKu courses, you will just go to my website, that is kukucourses.com. Just go to this website, and suppose just go to login and sign up maybe. Okay, and just register if you're totally new. By the way, if you already have account, just log in. Okay, in my case I already have an account, so I will just going to log in. Okay, and okay, it will just going to ask for the verification, because I already have that, so I will just verify it. Okay, that's it. Just click on the submit button, and then it will take to the website. Now if you just go to the tools area, so here we have a lot of tools. Okay, so if I just click on this access any of the tool, let's say YouTube title generator tool. Okay, here it's a tool. Now suppose I want to access or I want to run this tool. So basically I have one tool. Okay, okay, I have one tool in my website, that is YouTube tool. Okay, now guys, I'm just running this tool with some of my own server. Okay, so basically I have my own server. Okay, Now this server is private, of course I cannot show you, so I created my own server, okay, own private API. And by the way, if you are interested and want to create your own API and all, so what you can do is that again you can just go to my website, click on this courses button over here, okay, and just search for API, click on enter button, and you will going to see this amazing course we have here. That is here you can see build and sell API. You can just build your own API and you can also sell it to make money, okay. Complete 3 hours tutorial, you can just come to my website. And of course not only limited to the one course, you can see we have amazing courses: OpenAI API course, ChatGPT API and Postman course, okay. And you can also build a SaaS tools, okay, with AI and ChatGPT API as well, okay. So in our website you will going to find a lot of amazing courses. Like suppose you want to build maybe you have some WordPress website, and on that WordPress website, let's say you want to build something. Wait, let me just refresh it. Okay, so suppose on your WordPress website you want to build this type of a AI tool. So for that, we have this turn WordPress into a SaaS with ChatGPT and OpenAI API. So this is that course, okay. Without any technical knowledge, you can build AI tools. So we have basically plenty of courses, and it's not only related to the API. But in case if you want to build your own API, like I have my own server API, okay. So you can just follow this course, by the way. So all these courses we have in our website, okay. So you can just go to courses again, and you can just find a lot of courses like build online course website, email marketing course, affiliate marketing course, and you can just check all the courses we do have, okay. Like MailChimp course, search engine optimization course, 7 hours course, and so on. You can see the different categories we have here. So all these courses we have, and we provide all these courses in the membership. So you can just get our membership if you are interested. Yearly plan will going to cost you $20, okay, and lifetime plan will just going to cost you $99. And if you want to get 50% discount in this lifetime plan, you can just watch this video. This video will guide you how to get 50% discount in this lifetime plan. And another thing is that it's by the way, this guide will teach you how to buy our membership and get 50% off in this lifetime plan, okay. But it's like purchase, uh, like you purchase in the e-commerce website. So same procedure, when once your membership is purchased and activated, you can just access all the courses, okay. Every detail you can see, but this is the guide we recommend you to watch before you purchase our membership, okay. Even without buying you can just purchase it, but if you are interested in especially in 50% discount in this lifetime plan, I will just suggest you guys to watch this particular course, okay, sorry, video, to get 50% discount in the lifetime plan, okay. So this is what I just wanted to tell you. But now again, if you just come here, so this is my YouTube tool, and guys, I'm using one, my own server which I built. Of course I cannot show you. So whenever you type anything, okay, suppose I just type, let's say API basics maybe. Now when I click on these generate titles, so what will going to happen is that very simple, as we taught you, that my this YouTube tool will just going to send the request to my own server which I build myself, okay. And like this, if I just write here, so this is now tool is sending the request to my server, okay. And in return, server has given me this response. You can see this response which I can use, copy, and I can use it. So in return, this server has given me this response. okay, which you can see here. So this is basically the response which my server has given me. Okay, awesome, right? So this is what the private API are. So private API, you can just build your own API and you can maybe use that API, okay, for your own business. And a lot of businesses do the same thing. They just build their own server, API server, and they use it within their business. Okay. So this is the example of the private API. Okay. Hope you guys have somehow got the idea. So the purpose of this private API, okay, the purpose of this private API is to is for the self purpose, okay. For our own business, maybe we just create, and as we have said, it is for the self purpose. Like I'm using this, I basically created my own API server and I'm just using it for my own website, for my own AI tools. So I build for my own self. And the third is that you require the API backend, because as I have mentioned that I have my own server, okay, which of course I cannot show you, but that server is giving me this response, okay. So to use this private API, you also have to build your own API, okay, own API server backend, okay. And of course it's in public, it's not available, okay. So I build my own private API, and you cannot access my this API, because this is not public available, okay. Hope you guys have got the idea. Now when we just move to the public API, so there are two types. One is the free and another one is the paid one. Now let's see the difference here, okay. So see, the public API is basically created to help other applications, okay. Now we create this public API, okay, to help other applications. Now if you just focus on the public API, just leave the free and the paid one. So in our examples, the Apple and this one, this all API are the public API, because they all can access to each other. Similarly, you can see in this airline example which we have given you. So this example here also, they are all using public API. This is the reason they can just communicate with each other server, okay, publicly. And this API are also available for you to use. You can also get the API from the Indigo, okay. Or what you can do now is that you can maybe search for, let's say, flight API. You will going to see a lot of website, like let's say this one, that is aviationstack.com. Now this particular website will going to provide you the API key, okay. So like make my trip, okay, like make my trip is using the API that is basically connecting to other flights. So similarly, this company is providing you one API that will automatically going to connect to other server, okay, other server of flight. So these are all the public API. You can basically get the API, okay, automatically, because it's available for everyone. Even you can just come to this website and you can also get this API. So in nutshell, without making things complicated, this public API are available for everyone to use, okay. But the concept is that some can be the free, some can be the paid, okay. So basically the purpose is to help other applications. Now what does this mean? See, suppose I also want to build one make my trip type of a website where I want to help others, okay, by searching for different flights for traveling purpose. So in that case, I can use this public API that will going to help me to connect to the other servers and get give the information. So basically, make my trip is helping users like you and me to give that flight information. Okay, you can see make my trip is helping us to give all this information, okay, because this is created with the help of public API. So the main purpose of public API are to basically help other applications, that's it, okay, and it's built basically to help others, okay. And the best part is that if we specifically talk about public API free, so it's open source, available for totally free, okay. Example can be some website can provide you the free API, like you can just search for http bin. You will see this website http bin.org. Now this website, okay, http bin. So basically here you can see http bin is the example, okay. So wait, let me just show you. So here the server is http bin, okay, and here we have the http bin website, okay, like an application, okay. So this application or this server, and the name of this server is http bin.org. So this is completely open source, and basically it's complete free, okay, where you can just use their API. Especially we use it for the teaching purpose, okay. Similarly, there are some websites, like first is the http bin, and second one is like a Trello, okay, which you can also use for teaching purpose. So basically public API, it's totally available for free, okay, and we generally use this type of a public API to learn and practice API, that's it, okay. And in public it's available for free lifetime, okay. So this type of a public API which are totally free are available for you for lifetime, and basically the purpose is to practice, okay, to learn the concept of API. So right now we are just teaching you the API, but after some time, maybe in future, you will learn about API practically. So at that time this public API will only going to help you, okay. So it's Trello. So Trello is also one company, so you can also use their API for absolutely free for learning things, okay. Let's not go to that right now, okay. So hope you guys have got a good idea about these things, okay. What are all these things, the server and all, okay. Now okay, wait, let me just move it to maybe here, okay. Now, if we just talk about public API paid one, now this is basically for the same reason. Okay. Now, basically, it's same like public API free one, but the thing here is that it's also help to others. Okay, but it is not open source. That means this API is available for public to use, but they are paid. Okay, they are basically available, but available, but if you want to use this API, they are paid. For example, real example is this one. You can see aviation stack. They say that okay, you can get a free API, but they say that you can see here pricing. That means they will going to give you their API for free. You can see they have a free version as well, but only 100 request is allowed, okay. But they also have their plans where they just offer more features. So this type of API are paid API, okay, where if you want to use that type of API, you need to pay, okay. Let me just show you live example. For example, you can just search for OpenAI. Remember, OpenAI is a company that created ChatGPT. Now if you just search for OpenAI API, just go here, Okay, click on sign up maybe. We already have accounts, so I will just going to log in. And here you can see, now if you just go to the dashboard, you can see the API key. From here you can just generate the API key. You can just click on create the API key, and from here you can just create the API key. Now wait, let me show you my one. Okay, for example, here you can see in my practical example, I will go to the dashboard of OpenAI, just go to API key, and here you can see I created a lot of API key. You can even create one new API key. For example, I can say like, let's say API teaching, okay, basic. So for that reason, maybe you can name it whatever you want. I will click on create secret key, and you can see this is the API key I got, okay, and I can use it. But the problem is that it is a paid. Of course, you can use it, but it is a paid. OpenAI will going to charge me to use this API. You can see in the usage, you can see I'm using all this API. Okay, so it is costing me some money. Here you can see the usage. Like today, it cost me this much of amount, and so on. So this OpenAI, like you can see, OpenAI is an example of this public API paid one, where you can of course use this API, okay, but they will going to charge you money. So hope you guys have somehow got the idea about different types of API we have, and practically you have understood that. Okay, now guys, we will going to talk about the API base URL and end points. Okay, now what is the concept of API base URL and endpoint? So it's very simple and very easy, guys. Okay, so in nutshell, wait, let me just explain you that. So in a very nutshell, what base URL is? So base URL means, for example, see, every company, or I can say every server has their own base URL. Okay, like OpenAI also has their own base URL. Okay, um, so whatever business you go with, let's say with HTTP bin, Trello, they all have their base API. All the companies you see, they have the base URL. Okay, what you can do now is that suppose you can just search for Facebook API, you can just search for, let's say, Google API, let's say Twitter API, like this. Okay, so every big companies have their own server. That is, you all know every company has their own server, but all the companies have the base URL as well. Okay, now what base URL means? So base URL means where all APIs are located. Okay, so base URL of any server means where all the APIs are located for that particular brand. Okay, so that is known as base URL. Okay, that is known as base URL. Now every company has a different sort of URL. Okay, like some company may have, let's say like this one, let's say domain.com. Okay, whatever the domain name will be. Okay, then wait, domain.com, maybe slash, let's say API, let's say v1, anything like this. Okay, v1. Okay, and let's say products. So any company has any kind of a base URL. This is just a dummy. Some company have this type of API, maybe let's say let's say this one, API dot, okay, API dot domain.com slash API v1 products. Some company may even have this type of a domain, let's say without let's say v1, okay. Okay, even some company can even have the domains like this one, okay. So basically there's no any rule, but just understand that base URL means every company with their API server, they have some kind of a URL, okay. And this URL looks like something like this, okay. It can be different. Some company may even have like this directly their domain, and there they can just provide their API, okay. So basically this base URL is the location where all the API of that particular company is located. Right now you may not going to understand this, but after some time you will of course going to understand that, okay. For example, let's say if we just talk about this HTTP bin website, for example, here you can see this website, remember, http bin.org. They have a base URL, you can see at the top, this is their base URL. So every company, okay, has their base URL, okay. So in nutshell, as this is just a conceptual concept, so maybe in future if you just go with some practical examples, so at that time there will be always a concept known as base URL, okay. Now some companies like http bin.org, they directly provided you this base URL. You can see this is the base URL, but some company may not even provide you the base URL, so you have to identify that, okay. How to identify that, I will going to teach you that. But there is one another concept which we just want to teach you is about the endpoints. Now what are endpoints? Suppose that there is one business, and that business, let's just say sell some kind of a products, let's say the telescope, okay. Or maybe it can be, wait, let me just take some other product, let's say magnet. So suppose there's one website, there's one business who is selling all this kind of products, okay. So basically suppose if we take this as a base URL example, okay, this one as a base URL example, okay. So what will be the endpoint? So see, whenever suppose this is the domain URL, okay, and at the end it's products means all the products this business has, maybe they are selling some science related products. So let's say they have magnet and the microscope. It's like this one. Suppose if you just go to my website, if you just go to the courses, okay. So in the courses, you can see the URL. You can see kukucourses.com/courses. So in this URL, all my courses is listed here. You can see all my courses are here, okay. So similarly, suppose that there is one website, and that website at the end, let's say they have this as a base URL, okay. We are assuming this as a base URL in this case, but it can be any base URL, okay. So this base URL and at the end is showing products. So basically here, like in my website, it's courses. So basically all the courses I have in this particular URL. Similarly, let's say there's one business and they are selling some science related products. So in this URL, they have all, let's say science products. Okay. So now the question arises is that, okay, we have understood the base URL. Now what is the concept of endpoints? Okay, now what does this endpoints basically means? And this is also very much important to understand. Now base URL means it's a like a function, okay. Every base URL has one function at end. Now what does this mean? See, I will explain it. This is the URL we are using, right, as a base URL. So suppose this is the URL, okay, this is a complete base URL. Now suppose if in this base URL, if I add here, let's say microscope, so I telescope, okay, telescope. So here you guys can see that at the end, here at the end, okay, we have here the telescope. So the thing is that if anyone will going to type this, so basically at the end they have this endpoint. So basically endpoint is like a unique function or for a unique product, okay. So at the end you will always going to say this, okay, after base URL, this is the base URL, and after the base URL you will going to see something, okay, and this something is nothing but known as endpoints. So these endpoints basically denote that this is related to telescope. And similarly, let's say if I just copy and paste, and suppose instead of the telescope I say, let's say magnet, okay. Now magnet means that till this point, till this magnet, this is a magnet, and till this point, okay, you can see this is a base URL, and at the end you have attached the magnet, okay. So this particular base URL, and at the end we have magnet. So this endpoint, or I can say this API is related to magnet, okay. So basically the complete URL will always going to have one base URL, and at the end they will going to have some endpoint. For example, if you let's say go to http bin, this is their base URL, okay, http, and at the and you will just going to see that they will going to have something like this basic auth or digest auth, anything it can be, okay. So it will all going to attach after the here after the base URL, okay, at the end. So let's not go to the complex one, but just try to understand that we do have one concept of a base URL and the endpoint, okay. So base URL means basically where all the APIs are located of any server, and endpoints basically means it's related to one function, and basically this function will be always at the end of the base URL, okay. So suppose this is the base URL, so after this base URL, like here you can see after the products, this is the endpoint. So this endpoint means this particular API is completely related to telescope, and similarly this complete API is related to the magnet, okay. So basically this is the complete API URL. So API URL will going to have the base URL plus endpoint, okay. So wait, let me just write here, okay, as in the box, okay. Okay, so basically any API URL will going to have one base URL plus, okay, plus it will going to have endpoint, okay. So this is the simplest concept. So remember at the very top we said about the API URL. So to connect any particular server and the client, maybe you require this API URL, and this API URL will going to have two things, that is the base URL plus endpoint. So every server can have their different base URL, but always remember that after the base URL at the end they will going to have some endpoint, okay, like this one, okay. So This is what I just try to teach you here with the concept of what base URL is and endpoint is. Of course, this is just a conceptual one. Maybe in future, if you just work in some practical, uh, you know, uh, cases, so at that time you will understand this in more easiest way. But just uh, take one thing in your mind or store this thing in mind, that there is also a concept of base URL and endpoint. Okay. So now guys, we will going to go with a new concept that is known as HTTP. So I know that you guys are somehow getting confused about whatever we have learned. So let's revise it, okay, before we proceed with this thing. So first we have learned about server and client, where we just taught you that there is one client, okay, it generally your computer, okay, and there is one server, okay. So basically client always send some request, and remember here we have HTTP. So basically whenever any client send the request, so there is one HTTP concept, and that HTTP concept we will going to cover right now. But let's revise it first of all, okay. So whenever any client send a request to the server, okay, so the server process this request, it understand what client want, and according to that it send the response to the client, okay. Let's go with more detail. For example, client is, let's say, your computer, and maybe in computer you're using, let's say, Safari. So let's take this as an application one, and another one is the server. Let's say this is the Apple server, okay, or you can say like Apple's website application number 2, assume it, okay. So basically whenever you send request as a client, okay, suppose you are using Safari application, and as a client you are sending the request, so server, the Apple server will going to receive this request, it will process it, and according to that it will send the response, okay. And as we told you in the API, that when we just try to connect two applications or more, okay, so basically this is what API is. So API main concept is to connect the two applications or more applications, okay, with each other, okay. So basically whenever we send any request, and whenever we receive any whenever we send the request or whenever we receive any response, so there is always some sort of a data, okay. Like in Safari, if you just send the request and if you say that, hey, tell me about iPad Air, so Apple will going to process it, and according to that it will just going to send the response to the client, okay, saying about, let's say, iPad Air features, price, etc., and so on. So this is what we told you. Now let's just go with more detail, and here we just told you with more complex example that how basically API works, okay. There can be multiple servers and they can just interact with each other. The client will going to send the request, okay, and to whatever server you have sent the request, that server can further send your request to maybe some other servers, and that server will going to process it and send the response back to the server, and then your server, the main server to whom you have sent the request, that server will going to receive the response from their server, and it will going to send the response to the client, okay, and that data you can see, okay. So this is how some complex example we have also shared with you. Then we told you that there is always a client, okay, and there is always the server. So to you all know about that we send the request and the server just send the response back, okay. But especially from the developer point of view, when we use, let's say, some applications like Python, or let's say Postman, so at that time what happen is that we need to connect to some server, and when we try to connect maybe to server, so we cannot do that directly. So to connect that, this server will going to provide their own API URL key and token. So we need to use this API URL key and token to connect the server to our client. Now client can be anything, it can be Python, Postman, or any other application, okay. This is what we told you. okay, about the API key and authentication. Then after that, what we told you is about the types of API: private, public, and in the public we have a complete free and the paid one. Okay, so we just make you guys understand about this in very detail. Okay, now we also discuss about the base URL endpoint. So every server, whatever server, whether it's a OpenAI server, or let's say Indigo server, Delta server, or any server, any business server. So each one has their API URL. Okay, and as I have told you that these servers only give us the API URL. So whenever they will going to give you the API URL, okay, so that API URL will have two things. First is the base URL plus endpoint. Okay, so base URL will be common, okay, but every server may have different type of a URL. Okay, so that will be the base URL. So base URL means where all the APIs are located, that is known as base URL. And we also mentioned that after their base URL they can put some endpoint. Okay, endpoint is like a function or for some specific purpose. So at the end of any base URL, whatever that will be is known as endpoints. Okay, so this is what we have covered till now. Now we will going to talk about HTTP. So if you all know that, as let's take this, okay, this one, Postman, and let's say this one, let's say server here, and we also talk about the send request. Now we are just only taking the send request example. Okay, and rest you all know. So basically whenever client send the request to the server, so there is always the request in the form of HTTP. Now this can be, okay, this can be like, let's say, okay, this can be maybe post, it can be, let's say, get, or it can be, let's say, delete. Okay, or it can be, let's say, put, anything. Okay, so basically whenever you send the request, so you first have to select the type of HTTP. It can be either post, get, delete, put, or there are plenty of them, but main are four. Okay. Now, what is this basically? So, if you will going to know this, maybe in HTTP bin, you can see we have this type of a get, okay, delete, get, patch, post, put. So this is known as HTTP. So basically, if I just try to explain you, there will be always a base URL. Remember that there will be a base URL, okay, like this, and this is the base URL, okay. Till now you have understood that. Okay, wait, let me just put that here. Okay, wait, let me just send it to back. Okay. Okay. So whenever there will be some base URL, so my friends, before this base URL, there will be one HTTP. Now, wait, let me just show you. Now, this HTTP can be like, let's say, it can be post. Okay, wait, let me just make and change the color to black. Okay, oops, okay, it's not visible. Okay, so it can be, let's say, post. Okay, it can be, let's say, get, it can be, let's say, delete. Okay, it can be, let's say, put. So this is what it will have. Okay, so basically in the front of base URL endpoint, you also have to mention the HTTP. Okay, so let's first try to make you guys understand, okay, about the different HTTP method. For example, let's say first we have post. Now post means, let's take the example of, let's say, Trello. Okay, wait, let me just show you guys. Okay, so what you can do now is that you can just go to this website Trello. You can just get Trello for free, absolutely free. Okay, and just sign up, by the way. Okay, and after you will basically going to sign up to the Trello. Wait. So basically this is how the Trello account will going to look like. So basically Trello has let's take this as a Trello server. Okay, server is Trello website, and Trello website, let's take it the application too. So we can just command to Trello that you need to, let's say, create something. So post means whenever we want to create maybe something. Okay, so maybe let's say from your client, suppose we are using Postman, and with Postman we can just send the request. We can say that we can just write here post, and in the base URL we can just set that. And when we just write here post, so post basically means that we are sending the request to the server saying that you need to create something in your server. Okay, for example, think like this. Okay, suppose that let's take the imaginary example where we can just say that, with more simplest example, let's say we have one fruit business. Okay, let's say fruit server. This server is related to fruit, and let's say we have some fruit website, and in this server basically, let's say there are plenty of, let's say, fruits. For example, wait, let me just take some, or let me just search for maybe apple. Okay, so suppose this server has apple. Okay, now suppose I want to add banana to this server. Okay, I want to add banana. Okay, so in the client I will just send the request, and this request will be HTTP put. Okay, and sorry, post, HTTP post. So post means we will going to send the post request to the server, and we will going to say that create something, or I can say like add, create or add maybe banana to your server. So this server will going to add banana in the collection. Okay, so maybe whenever we want to create or maybe add something, okay, or resources, anything to the server, then we use the post request. Get request means it's basically used to collect information. Okay, so suppose if the client will going to send the request, okay, and the method is, let's say, get. Okay, and this get will always going to be at the very front in the API URL. Okay, so whenever the client will just going to send the request, and the HTTP method, okay, HTTP, we are just uh, HTTP method is, let's say, get. So when we send this request to server, so he will going to receive the HTTP get request, and now the server has to give the information the server has. So server will going to say that, hey, I have one banana and I have one apple. Okay, and it will just going to send that as a response to us, to the client. and we will going to receive the response where we will come to know that the server only has two fruits, one is banana and another one is the apple. So get is always used to collect the information from the server, like we use the post to create something in the server. Okay, so suppose if again we use the client, and let's say again the http method is post. Okay, post, and we say to the server that let's say you want to add, let's say, grapes. Okay, as a the client will going to request, send the request. Okay, post request, because post is used to create or add something to the server. Okay, so as a client will going to request http method as a post and say to the server that add grapes as well to your server. So server will going to add or put the grapes in the collection, like this. Okay, now get is again used to collect the information. Suppose again now the client request there, and the http method is, let's say, get. Okay, and as I have mentioned at the very starting of the API URL, get will be there. Okay, so suppose the client send the request http method get request to the server. So server will going to understand, okay, that this is a get request. That means server has to send or collect the information it has. So server will going to process this request. It will just going to see in the collection that what it has. So it has one banana, fruit and apple. So then the server will going to process this request and send the response to the client, and it will say that now I have three fruits. One is banana, one is grape, and one is uh, apple. So this is how it works. Okay, now another one is the delete. Now delete basically means when we want to delete something from the server. Okay, so suppose if we say to the postman, sorry, to any client. Okay, we can even use python or anything. So at that time when we will going to send the request, and let's say our http method is, let's say, delete. Okay, so when we send this delete request to the server, so server will going to understand, okay, I want to delete something. Now suppose in the send request you say that just delete the banana. Okay, so server will going to receive that request, and the order, client has given the order to delete the banana. So now server will going to delete this banana. Okay, and it will going to send the response, that response to the client. Okay, server will going to send the response to the client, and it will say that I deleted the banana on the basis of your order, or on the basis of the request you have sent to me. So delete basically helps you to delete something from the server. Okay, and another one is the put. Put means update. If put means update something in the server. Okay, so so suppose if let's say okay, so suppose if the client will going to send the request, and the http method is, let's say, put. Okay, http method is, let's say, put. Now this request will go to the server. Okay, and server will going to understand, okay, they have ordered for the put, so he has to update something in the server. And suppose the client has said that you just have to update, let's say, two banana. Okay, so server will going to update one apple. Okay, and the client has given the order to update to the two apple. So server will going to update this to the two apple. Okay, and it will just going to send the response to the client, and it will say now you have total two apples. Okay, so this is how this http method works. Okay, so Always remember, in the API concept you will going to have these things, that is HTTP method, and in the HTTP method there will be something like this: post, get, delete and put. So client will always going to send the request in the HTTP method, and this can be, let's say, post, put, get or delete. So let's say if the send request is post, so that means server has to create something inside it. Okay, so the server has to create something, okay, as per the order of the client. And if it will be get, so the server has to collect the information it has in the server and send that information as a response to the client. And if the send request is the delete, okay, if the client send the request as a delete, so server will going to get the delete request, and it will just going to delete the thing as per the client order. If the client says that you have to delete all apples, okay, so server will going to delete the apple, and it will just going to send the response to the client that I have deleted the two apples. And put means update. Okay, so this is how, my friends, the HTTP method works in the API. Okay, so of course this is just a very simple and the basic example. Okay, but this is how the HTTP method works. Okay, you have learned a lot of things, guys. Okay, I will show you this practically how it works, but understand one thing: this is just the conceptual, and we in the basic conceptual we have just taught you each and everything. Okay, and for example, if you want to just learn about how to deal with the servers and all these things practically, so what you can do is that you can just search for KuKu courses. Okay, click on enter, just go to this website, that is kukucourses.com website. Go to this courses, search for API, click on enter, and you will see this course. Okay, that is API testing with Postman basic to advanced with ChatGPT. Okay, you can see complete 10 hours course. So this is the free course, so it's not possible for us to teach all this thing. Okay, complete 10 hours lecture, that will be too big. Okay, so we just put this thing to our website. Okay, you can just see the preview video. Hey guys, and this course is complete 10 hours 30 minutes. Okay, very powerful course. Okay, so again you can just get that in the membership, so we already discussed that. Okay, once you get the membership, so you can go with this course. So basically, if you just notice this thing, so basically here we just taught a lot of things in practical way. So whatever we taught you in the conceptual, all these things you will going to understand in the practical level. Okay, like how to send the request to the server, how to receive the response, how response look like, so you will do everything in practical. Okay, we also taught you that you need the API URL key and token to connect the client to the server, and how all these things work. So each and everything we have taught here, you can see here, using the power of Postman. Okay, so basically tons of that. Okay, here you can see, um, you can just see here each and everything, like how to get the URL. Okay, how to generate the tokens and key, each and everything, my friends, because it is not frankly possible in this small mini course to discuss all the things practically. So that's why we have a separate course, and believe me, it's very powerful. So if you are interested, you can, if you want to take your knowledge to the practical level. Now if we just talk about this HTTP method, so all this thing you can basically learn. So suppose right now the client is Postman. Okay, and suppose our server is, let's say right now, Trello. Okay, so let's say Trello. So just do not worry, okay, about what I am doing right now. Okay, but Trello is one website that help us to create the board. So if I just open any board, so in the board you can just mention what you have. It's like calendar, where you define that what you want to do today. Okay, what you have to do, like you have to go to gym. Okay, you just have to, let's say, study economics maybe, then you just have to go for tennis. Okay, like this is basically the tasks we have to do. Okay, do not worry. Okay, you do not have to do any kind of a sign up or anything, just watch what I am doing. Okay, this is just a practical. Even if you don't understand, that's okay, and do not worry what I am doing. Okay, then in the doing you can just mention that what you are currently doing. Suppose you are just gymming. Okay, you are in the gym, so in the doing that will come, and what you have done till now, so that thing will come up here. So this is basically the board. So board in Trello, where you can just define your tasks which you have to do. So we can create many boards. So suppose if I want to create another board. Okay, so suppose I will click on this plus button, and here I will just going to say that my another board. I will click on create button. Now you can see new board is created. Now if you just go here, and you will see my another board, this is created. But guys, same thing I can do with the help of API. Okay, now I will going to use, let's say, Postman. So here it's the Postman. You can see this is how Postman looks like. If you don't know anything about how to download each and everything has been covered in this 10 hours course, if you're interested. Okay, like from downloading the Postman, what is Postman, and each and everything is covered step by step, so you do not have to worry about anything. Okay, so from this Postman, so this is the basically my client is my Mac Studio, that means my computer. And inside my computer, my Postman is application which I want to use. Okay, so here you can see Postman is this application. You can see this is the Postman application, and the server is right now Trello. Okay, so you can see Trello is the server, and I have connected my this Trello server, okay, to my Postman, which is this one. Now I can directly control the server of Trello directly from here. Okay, so suppose, let me show you the magic. Okay, so let me just make it to the full screen. Now just see the magic. Suppose if I put it here, now here you can see Trello. Just see this in practical. Okay, so suppose now what new board I want to create. Suppose the new board I want to create, let's say my new board. Okay, now if I just click on this send button, so you will going to notice that automatically my new board has been created. So I didn't do anything in the website. Okay, I just didn't do anything in the website. What I did is directly from the Postman. So this is the power, my friends. So with as we have mentioned here in the HTTP method, that whenever we send the request, so I am sending the request. You can see here, just see, this is basically the base URL. As I have told you that this is the base URL. Okay, so this is how the base URL looks like. For every business the base URL is different, do not worry about that. And as I have told you one thing, that if in the front of this base URL there will be one HTTP method, that is post right now. So post, so you can see in the front I have this post request. I can just choose anything, post, get, and so on. Okay, and as I have told you that when we send the request and the method is post. Okay, so post will basically help you to create something. So right now you can see Trello, we are using Trello. Okay, so suppose I just want to, let's say, create another thing. Suppose I can say 2024. Okay, this is basically the board I want to create in the Trello server. So without accessing the Trello, I can directly do that from my client. So what I am doing right now as a client, Postman, I am just sending the request, post request to the Trello server to create one new board. Okay, so just see the magic. I will click on this send button, and I will going to send the post as the HTTP request. Click on send, and you can see the new board has been created in the Trello server automatically without doing from the UI of Trello. Awesome. right? Similarly, I can do this same thing. Suppose I just want to get the information of, let's say, this this particular board. So I will just going to get the board. Now I will just go to the get board. Remember this get board. So get request help you to get the information. Okay, so wait, let me just change it to, okay. So basically when I will going to send the request, so what I'm doing right now, I'm just using get, okay, and I'm saying as a postman from my client, okay, client is my postman, which is this one. So I'm just sending the request get, okay. So I'm just sending this request to the Trello server that I want to get the information about this board, okay. So now just see the magic when I will going to send the request. So now basically what the Trello server is sending, now the Trello server is sending me the response, and it is giving me all the information about this board. You can see it is giving me all the information about this board. Similarly, we have a delete. Remember, delete we have. So whenever we want to delete something from the server, so suppose I want to delete this 2024 board which we have created, okay. So remember that the delete will be, parameter, okay. So delete will be http method, and this is basically the base url and the endpoint, all this thing, okay. Now basically client is my postman, which is this one at the left side, and as a client I am just sending the request, http request, and now this http method is delete, okay, it's delete. So you all know that the http method is always in the front of the API URL. Okay, so this is my API URL, and in the front of API URL I have a delete http method as a delete. Okay, now I want the server to delete this board. Okay, so server is the Trello, so I want the Trello server to delete this board. Okay, so I will just going to change it, okay, like this, okay. Now when I will going to send the request, so basically as a postman, from the postman I am sending the request to the Trello server that you have to delete this board, okay. So just see the magic, and you can see it deleted that board, right? So this is basically the power. Even I if you will going to notice that from the Trello I can also delete any board, okay. If you just see here, if I just go here, and from here I can delete, okay, close. Now suppose I delete this my another board, you will see now it's deleted. But without using the Trello website, I'm directly doing that task from my client, that is the postman. So basically this is what I told you, that from your server you can basically, access to the server, okay, from your client. Now your client can be, let's say, Postman, Python, or anything. So with this client you can directly access to the server, and you can just give the command to the server and it will going to do that task for you. That is what I taught you right now. So you can see the power that I am directly using one client, that is Postman. Now if you are not aware about all this thing, as I have mentioned, do not worry, but just understand the power, that when once you just configure and connect the client with the server, you can make server whatever you want to do with this HTTP method, and I have shown you practically. And if you just want to learn each and everything about how to set up the server, how to use each and everything from scratch, everything will be taught to you from scratch. How to configure, how to connect the server and client, each and everything has been taught here, okay. But this is all I just want to teach you in this free course, and hope you guys have got a good idea about what API is and all the conceptual topics, okay. And at last I will say, if you can go with this course, please go. It will just going to boost your knowledge to the very next level. So whatever we have done, okay, API and all whatever we have done right now, you will also be able to do after you will watch this complete course. Okay, so this is what I want to tell you here. Okay, now we will going to discuss about ChatGPT. Okay, so for this course, it's very much important that you should have the ChatGPT. Now, guys, ChatGPT is by the way very powerful. Okay, so throughout the course, maybe if you face some problems, some errors, so you can just discuss that with the ChatGPT. So if you are not aware what ChatGPT is, so ChatGPT is a chatbot. Suppose if I just write hi, how are you, question mark, and when I will click on enter, so on the basis of our prompt, the question, it will just going to give you the response. Okay, that's very powerful. And the best thing about ChatGPT is that it will always going to remember the history. That means, for example, if I say that how many states US has, question mark, okay, and click on enter, now it will going to say that the United States has 50 states. Now see, if just see the one thing, now I'm just telling it to name them, okay, question mark. Now I'm not mentioning that, basically I want that ChatGPT to tell me the name of all the 50 states United States has, but I'm not telling to ChatGPT directly that you have to name me all the states, 50 states of United States. So you can see I just said name them. So basically ChatGPT will use the common sense, and it knows that okay, at the above conversation we are talking about the United States, and I just told the name them, so it used the common sense and it is giving you the response that is related to the United States. So this is basically the power of ChatGPT, and it's very powerful. It has amazing knowledge, okay, and along with the knowledge, it also has the memory. This is the reason it can just store the previous conversation, and according to that, it will just going to give you the best response. So it's very much important to have ChatGPT, and this is what we will going to use for this Postman guide. Okay, so you can see here, you can see all the history. Let's click on this plus button, and here we will going to discuss. Okay, here you can open the new chat, and here in the message you can just write like whatever I'm writing, you can just write the same thing. Hey, you are an expert in API testing and Postman. You have 20 years of experience in this field. Okay, you you are really good at teaching and solving any problem related to this field. Okay, now your job is to help me with learning, learning these topics, and in case in future if I face any trouble, so you have to help me out. So have you understood your job, question mark. Okay, so you just have to write this thing to ChatGPT and then click on enter button, and you will see the response. And you can see that it said that okay, it understand the plan. So basically we have now programmed ChatGPT to help us with the API testing and Postman. So maybe in case if you don't understand, let's say API, okay, so suppose till now I assume that you guys have watched the free course which we have. Okay, so suppose in case if you don't understand, let's say any topic, let's say what is, let's say API, question mark. Okay, so chat, you can just take the help of chat gpt. Maybe it can be possible that you may have some doubt, some problem, and of course this is a free course, so plenty of other students will going to watch this course. Okay, So from our point of view, it is not possible for us to solve the problem or questions you have. So that's the reason we tell students to use ChatGPT for their doubts. So in future, if you have any doubts, any problem, any errors, so you can just tell to ChatGPT, it will just going to solve you with this. Okay, and you can see that when you ask it, it has just given you the same thing. Okay, now suppose you can just say it like this. Suppose you can say, hey, what you explain above, I still did not understand. Okay, so can you explain me what API is in more easiest way with examples? Okay, like this. Okay, uh, assume you are teaching to 12 years non-tech children. Okay, so you can always say like this as well. So in case if you don't explain, don't understand the above stuff, so you can just say to ChatGPT, hey, still I haven't understood, teach me like you are teaching to a 12 years old kid who don't have any tech background. So now you will see the response will be very basic. Okay, so even a 12 years old student can understand. Now you can see this trying to explain you the power, the concept of API with some real life example like restaurant and all. So this is the reason I suggest students, along with any topic, use ChatGPT, okay, for the free courses. And of course you will going to watch this course, so you will better going to understand each and everything. Just for an example, I just told you that this is the way you can just utilize the ChatGPT, okay. And in future if you face any problem, so at that time ChatGPT will going to solve you that. We will going to see that later on, but make sure that you should have ChatGPT. In case if you don't have any ChatGPT account, so you can just search for ChatGPT, click on enter, you will just going to see this chatgpt.com. Just go to this domain and click on this sign up button. It's totally free for you to sign up, okay, and use the ChatGPT. Just sign up with email, Google or Apple, Microsoft, and then it will ask you for the phone number. Just put your phone number and sign up for absolutely free, and this is where you will come up here. Okay, we will going to discuss about the new concept, that is the API testing. So before we just understand what Postman is, okay, we will first going to understand the API testing, what API testing is all about. And I assume that you have watched our free course, okay, then only you will better going to understand, in case if you don't know about the basics of API and all. But let's just proceed after this. Okay, HTTP method, we have discussed till HTTP method in this free course. Okay, so after the HTTP method, we will going to discuss about API testing. Now what API testing is? So in very simple, you all know that there is one client. Okay, now it can be maybe Python or any client. Okay, and you all know that there is one server. Okay, so sometimes what happen is that we just try to send the request. Okay, so with the power of API testing, what we want to do is that you can only see the name API testing. That means you are just testing API whether it's working absolutely fine or not. Okay, so this is the very simple example of what API testing is. So API testing means testing whether API is working and giving the correct response or not. So for that reason we use API. Okay, name only suggesting API testing. That means whatever API we are running, so we are just testing that API whether that is working absolutely fine or not. Okay, and you all know that when the client basically send the request to the server, and in return server return back the response to us. Okay, so that is what we discussed till now. Awesome. So we just have to verify in the API testing that when the client send the request and when the server send the response back, okay, so whether this response is giving us the correct data or not. Okay, so this is what API testing is all about. So we just test that the response is basically correct or not. So this is what we basically discuss in the API testing. That's it. So this is the concept of API testing. Okay, and of course you can always ask to ChatGPT as well, like, hey, similarly, can you explain me API testing? Okay, concept question mark, and then it will just going to give you the response as well, right? But we have already taught you this thing, but in case if you still want to go with more examples and more, okay, so you can just use the chat gpt. It will now try to give you the examples in the very easiest way, so that the 12 years old kid can also understand that. Okay, you can say with examples, right? So let's not go with that, but in simple, whatever we taught you in the presentation, so this is what API testing is, and this is where we use API testing. Okay, now we will going to understand what Postman is, and what and basically how we can download it. But in simple, Postman is a tool that help us to do the API testing. That means with Postman you can basically send the request to the server, and then the server will going to give you the response, so you can check whether the response the server is giving is coming correctly or not. Okay, or if there will be some error, and all that thing you can basically do with the help of Postman. Okay, and let's see now how you can just download the Postman. Now guys, we will going to learn about Postman, but before that let's install the Postman. Okay, so you can just type this my dash link dot in slash postman. Everything is small, my dash link dot in slash postman. Click on enter button. It will take you to the website where you can just download the Postman. Okay, so here what you need to do is that you just need to download the Postman. Okay, for the version you can see we have a Windows version, Mac version, as well as Linux. So that's totally up to you for what you want to download. So in my case I'm using Mac OS, so I will choose to Mac, but in case if you're using Windows you can just go with the Windows. Now what this Postman is all about, we will going to discuss that later on, but let's just click on this Mac logo in my case, and then it is giving me the option to download it. So basically Mac has two versions. First is the Intel chip and the Apple chip. So in my case I have an Apple chip. Okay, so here you can see download has begun shortly. Okay, and you can see in just few seconds it will just going to download your Postman to your basically system. Okay, so let's wait. Okay, so almost good to go, and here we go. So we got that. Okay, now basically you just need to install that application. In my case, in the download, here you can see that this is the Postman. I will just going to download it, like if you're Windows user, so like you just do normally. Okay, so same process you have to do. So you can see, just double click. In my case I'm a Mac user, so I'm installing it. Installing it, so I'm just double clicking on it, and you can see the Postman is here. Now I can just move it to the application here in the application folder. So I will just going to move that to the application like this, and that's it. And after that I will just go to the application, and in my case I will just going to see for the Postman. Okay. Or I can even just open the Postman from maybe here, and here I have a Postman. I will just going to open it, and it will just going to show you something like this. So let's open this. Okay, and this is where you will come. Okay, now from here you just need to put your working email address. So in my case I will just going to put my email address, whatever email address I have, I will just going to put that here. Okay, like this, and just click on create free account. By the way, what you can do is that you can just go to the Postman website in your browser, and from here you can just sign up. Click on this sign up, and just put your work email address, put the username, okay, and set the password like this. Okay, and click on verify you are a human like this, and click on create free account. Okay, like this, and just wait for that, and here you go. You can see, you can just put the name. Okay, for example I can just name my business name only. What is the role? Maybe we can just select anything. Okay, that doesn't matter too much, but let's just select maybe to anything. Okay. mm, okay, let's just go with maybe, let's say tester, something like this, anything. Click on continue button, and you can see that it will just going to take you to here, and this is how it will just going to look like. Okay, and that's it. Now after you will going to create the account here, then you just need to come here and then click on this login button. So from here it will just going to log in it like this. Okay, and this was the one you created. Just continue it, and it will automatically going to sync. Click on open Postman app, and you can see it will automatically going to sync, and this is how your Postman will going to look like. Okay, like this. So in this way my friends, you guys can just create a Postman account. Okay, very easily. Okay, and it's very simple. You can just put it to the full screen, and this is how it will going to look in the full screen. And do not worry, whatever you will going to do here, that will also going to display to your web version. Okay, so see the web version and this one will exactly going to look the same. Okay, very small changes, but overall it will just going to look exactly same. So in this way we have created successfully the Postman account. Okay guys, we will going to talk about the errors in API. Okay, in API. So there can be some error as well. For example, let's say right now we have set up the Postman. This is how your Postman will going to look like. In your case, it may be only one workspace. Do not worry. You can just see the option of a workspace, and from the top, you can create a new workspace. But right now you do not have to do anything. You just have to follow me, because I will teach you one new concept here. Okay. So see, basically whenever we try to send the request. Okay, okay, so when we just try to send the request, so at that time what happened is that there can be some errors. Okay, so there can be some mistakes. So maybe let's say you as a client from the Postman. Okay, so Postman is now our application one. So we just send the request with the Postman. Okay, to the server. So the thing here is that server will going to process this request, and it will going to send the response. Now if this response is successful, okay, that means it will just going to give you the response successful. So you will going to get the code like, let's say, 200 code, or it can be, let's say, 201 to 202, but basically in the category of 200. Okay, it can be 200, 201, 2, 3, whatever it is. So it denotes that the response which we have got is successful. For example, wait, just let me just teach you. I'm just giving you with one example, okay? So suppose if I just go here and if I just run any request, now I'm sending it and you can see it's showing 200, okay. That means request is successful. Here you can just read the description that the response is now successful. So now that means the server has given us the response successful without any problem, and whatever request which we have sent to the server, it is also correct, and the response which we got from the server is also correct. So it will show you the successful code 200. Okay, but there can be some other problems as well, like this is the first one. So wait, let me just put this to the green color, but there can be some problem. Okay, like the problem can be from the client side. Okay, so this is known as client error. So client error code will be something like 400 or 401, 402, 403, 404. It can be any, but it will be always in this line of 400. Okay. So whenever you will going to receive any of this thing, okay, so it will be in the 400 category. Okay, and that will going to denote that the problem is from the client side, from the postman. Maybe suppose I'm sending some request, okay, and maybe I done something wrong. Okay, suppose I haven't defined the key. Okay, suppose I haven't defined the key. Okay, and I'm trying to send it, and you will going to see that it showed me 401. Why? It is saying that this problem is from our side as a client, the person who is using the postman. So they have done something wrong, or maybe they haven't put anything, like in our case we haven't put the key. So without key, we are sending the request. So it is saying the response. Here you can see at the bottom, it will show you the response. And it will going to give you the reason that there is invalid key here. That means there's the problem from the client side. Okay. And this is what you can see. Okay, so whenever you send the request to the server, and in while sending the request, maybe if you have done something wrong. Okay, so it will always going to show the error. Okay, it will be in 400 category, like right now it's shown the 401. That is what we said. It can be 401 or 400 or 402, 3 and so on, anything. Okay, but always remember, if it shows some error like 400, so that means you have done some mistake from, if you are using the postman. So from postman, while sending the request, you have done something wrong. Maybe you haven't provided the correct API URL or any thing which you have done, but the mistake is from your end. Okay, so in that case, it will just going to show you the 400 error. Okay, the client error. That means from the client side, the error has been created. Okay, and let's say similarly, suppose sometimes this can happen that there can be some server error. Okay, there can be some server error. So if there will be some server error, so at that time it will going to show something like 500, 501, 2, 3, 4, anything, but it will be in 500 category. Okay, so if anytime you send the request, and in there if it shows something like 500, 501, so that means the problem is from the server. Okay, so whatever server you are using or trying to connect your API, so from their end there is some problem. Like if you remember that if you have watched our free course, okay, in our website, so here we have just given you the example of a airline, where we just said that if this you can see that this is the server, let's say, okay, which we are using. So sometimes the problem can be from, let's say, Indigo. Okay, so what will going to happen is that Make My Trip will going to send the request to the Indigo Airlines, and because it has some problem, so it will not going to give the response correctly. So the same response the Make My Trip will going to give to the client, and it will show that there is some problem in the server side. So because of that, you will not going to get the response. Okay, So this is all about the errors, okay, which we have, or you can say the status code errors in API. So generally speaking, there are only two types. One will be the successful, like suppose if I just put here, let's say again, okay, if I just put here the key, okay, now if I just try to run it, it is showing 200. That means it's working correctly, successful. Okay, so in the successful case, when and the successful will only be happen when the client has put all the details correctly while sending the request, and server has also given the correct response. So at that time only the request, or I can say the status, will be successful and it will show in the 200 category. But if you have done some mistake from the postman, okay, so in that case it will show 400, and there can be some server error sometimes, or sometimes there can be the hosting problem. Maybe whatever VPS this server are using, whatever web hosting this server are using, so from their side from their side the hosting has some problem, so because of that the server may be down. Okay, so in that case it will just going to show the server error as 500, or 5, or inside the 500 category. Okay, 500, 501, 2, 3, and so on. So this is about the errors, status code errors in the API. Let's try to understand the Postman UI. Okay, so just open the Postman, and this is how your Postman will going to look like. Okay, now if I just click on the home, so maybe when you are using it first time, so this is how your home page will going to look like. And one more thing, that Postman always change the interface. Okay, but whatever concept which I am teaching you, it will be 100% same. Okay, so maybe last time the workspace option was at the top, but now they just move that option to here. So these are the small changes they can do. Okay, so they will just going to change some small things here and there, but the concept will be 100% same, which I am trying to teach you. So right now you will going to see current workspace. If you will see here the options at the top, it is showing the all the workspace. In your case, it can be only my workspace by default. Okay, but you can create your own workspace. So you can just click on this create workspace and click on the blank workspace. Click on the next button. Okay, and let's say you can just say like maybe you can also make it to personal or public, so anyone can use your workspace. But if you want for your team members, or if you want for your partners and team members, you need to purchase their premium version. But we will go with the personal one. Okay, so I can just say for maybe teaching, you can just name it whatever you want. Okay, like teaching, click on create button, and you can see that you have created one new workspace. Now if you just go to the home again, now you will going to see here the workspace. So now your teaching workspace is here. So from here you can just go to any workspace you have. So currently we have created this teaching workspace. So I will click on this teaching workspace, and I will just come to this type of a dashboard. Now maybe in future, if you are watching this course, and maybe interface may go little bit change, but the concept will be 100% same. Okay. So the concept here, my friend, is very simple. You will going to see this plus button. So from here you can just click on this plus button, and from here you can just change the name. You can just select the HTTP method. Remember the HTTP method we just taught you, different HTTP method: post, get, delete, put. Okay, so everything we just taught you in this free course, by the way. Okay, but you can just select any HTTP method, whether the post, it can be maybe delete, or anyone. Okay, now here remember that we just taught you in the free course that we need to put the API URL. Okay, and all these things we just get it from the server. API URL, API key, or some can even ask you the token. So all this information are required so that you can just connect your client, that is the Postman, which is this one. And if you want to connect your Postman to maybe any other server, okay, any other server, it can be any server: Facebook server, OpenAI server, or Trello server or any server. So if you want to just connect or build the connection between the Postman and the server, you need all these details like API URL, key, and token. Okay, so this API URL will going to come up here. Okay, in this URL you can see here it's written enter URL. So here you just have to paste the URL, the API URL, and you all know that we just taught you that API URL has two type of thing, that is the base URL and the endpoint. Okay, so I suppose that you already know what the base URL endpoint is. If you don't have any knowledge about this, so this is the reason I told you to watch this free course. Okay, so you will basically understand each and everything by the way. Okay, so basically whenever we put here any URL, so it will just going to contain the base URL plus endpoint. Okay, so till now it's very much simple and easy. Okay, then here you can just pass some parameters. Okay, you have some headers, it is by default created, okay, by Postman. You don't have to do anything for now here. And in authentication you can just authenticate. Okay, there are plenty of methods. You remember that in the authentication method, in the this API keys and authentication procedure, we just told about you need the authentication. Okay, to build the connection between the client, that is the Postman, and between the server. So you can use various methods. There are plenty of them. Like bearer token is very common, basic code, and all these things. Okay, so this is the way. From here you can just connect the client and the server together if you are doing the authentication. Okay, rest no problem. Then we do have the body. So in body basically you provide the server more information. So whenever we send the request, okay, so whenever we just send any request to the server, so in the send request with the HTTP method, we just do provide a lot of other data, like wait, let me just show you. So whenever we just send the request to the server, okay, so along with this request we also can provide some data. Let's say it can be header data, okay, and body data. Okay, so that the server will going to get more clarity of what exactly you want. Okay, so suppose just with a very basic metaphor example, suppose if I just show you with, let's say, Apple. Okay, let's say suppose server has the Apple data, how many Apple the server has. Okay, and similarly let's say how many banana server has. Okay, so server basically has all this data. So basically whenever you send the request to the server, so with the help of header and footer, you can just specify more detail like what exactly you want. So suppose if you are saying that we want to know that how many apples we have, so server will basically going to work and specify, because you have specified that I am only interested in apple. So server will now going to only specify and work on the apple, and it will going to say that the server has two apples. Okay, so in the response it will going to show that there are two apples. Okay, in the response it will just going to show that there are two apples. So the purpose of this header and body is to basically provide the server with more details about what response we actually want. Okay, so for that purpose we use this header and body, and from here basically you can see it can be some raw data. In general case we use this raw data. It can be in the form of the JSON and XML. Okay, so JSON is basically very common, JavaScript and all. Okay, so with if I just put here some JSON uh, data. Okay, so basically you can just specify that here basically you can just give more details to the server. Okay, from here. Okay, now let's not go there right now. Okay, but from the body and the header you can just provide more information, and of course with the parameters as well. Okay, so in the with let me just write here parameters. So from the para, header and body you can basically provide more in-depth request to the server. Okay, that's it. Now the settings, and of course we have a script. Now the pre-request is basically a place where you can get the response before it will going to launch the request. Okay, and post response is basically when you get the response from the server, so after that this activity is performed. So basically useful for the automation, and if possible we will going to go with the automation as well. Okay, so at that time we will going to discuss about that. Okay, but in general the script help you for that thing. Okay, then we do have the setting. So basically these settings are related to this specific request only. Okay, so let's not go with that right now. Okay, so this is all about the Postman, and in case let's say if you want to know about anything, so what you can do is that you can just take the screenshot of it. You can just go to ChatGPT. You can just share the screenshot to ChatGPT like this. Okay, whatever screenshot you have taken. Okay, and you can just say to ChatGPT like, "Hey, I am in Postman. So can you tell me, let's say you want to learn about, let's say, parameters. Okay, me about uh, parameters. Okay, in detail, but for now basically you don't need to go to very in-depth detail, but I'm just giving you the idea how basically you can utilize ChatGPT. Okay, so in case if you want, but for now you do not have to very understand about these things. At the coming time we will going to explore all these uh, settings, but in case if you are interested to know in very in depth, you can just go with and go and learn with the chat gpt, by the way. But this is all about the UI of Postman. Okay, and we will going to discuss about more settings as we will going to go further. Okay, we will going to cover a real practical example. Okay, so you all know about this website, that is http bin. Click on enter button and you will going to see this http://bin.org website. Okay, just go to this website. Now after you will come to this website, this is how it looks like. Okay, so we will going to take this website as a practical example. So right now if you will going to see in the presentation that our client is our computer, of course, and the application is the Postman. And right now we are using the server as http bin. Okay, and http bin will be the website, or you can just say like application 2. Okay, nothing complicated till now. Now we will going to access to the http bin server. Okay, with the help of api. Okay, and we also just taught you about the concept of base url. Remember the base url, and we just told you the endpoint. So we just taught you that whatever the base url you have. Okay, so every server provides you with different base url. Okay, and you just have to attach the endpoint at the end of the base url. Suppose this is a base url, so till now the base url will be common everywhere. Okay, like here also you can see the same base url is here, but at the end we just add the endpoint. Okay, which will make it unique. Okay, and when this base url and endpoint you will just going to add together, it will become the api url, which you can just put it here. So keeping this concept in mind, okay, keeping this concept in mind, if we just go here to API URL, so if you will just go to the HTTP bin server, and you will going to notice here the base URL. So this is the base URL. Simple, just put it here. Suppose, wait, okay. Wait, let me just, okay, so this is basically the base URL, okay. This is a base URL, and the server only given us this, and this is what we taught you, that server will only going to provide you the API URL, key and token, each and everything, okay. So now this is just a base URL, and here you just have to add the endpoint as well. Now if you will just go to the server, and here you can see, if you just open any one, here you can see different HTTP method. Let's say delete, get, patch, put, post, and so on. Now suppose if I just open this delete one, so you can further see about this, okay. So here you can see this is the endpoint slash delete, okay. So if you will just going to put here slash delete, okay, so this will become your complete API URL, okay. So it has till this point the base URL, and then you have added this endpoint. This will basically add up together, and it will become the API URL. So if you will just copy this, and you all know that we have to put the API URL here in the Postman, so you just have to put this way, and make sure that you have to select the HTTP method as the delete, okay. So if I just select, let's say, delete, that's it. Now another thing is that it is saying that no parameters required. So here in the parameters, you do not require to put anything, okay, because this is what this documentation is telling you. So guys, whenever we just talk about any API which you want to use, so always remember, suppose we are using Trello API, and if you will just going to go to their documentation, suppose, wait, this one. Now here also you will basically going to see how to use them, okay. It will just going to tell you, each server will going to tell you how to use their API, and that is known as documentation, okay. So every API, every server API will going to provide you the documentation, where they will going to tell you that how you have to use their API. So suppose the board one. So suppose in the Trello API, they just say that if you want to, let's say, delete a board, so you just have to provide the ID in the parameter and so on, and the response will be success, like this. So every server provides the documentation which you have to follow to use the API, okay. So in this delete case, you can see that there is no parameter, and it is saying that the content type is always the application or JSON. So after you will, it is saying that after you will send the request, the response you will going to get is 200, and the description will be this one. Let's see how it goes. Click on this send button, okay, base URL and all. Let's click on this send button, and you can see we got the 200 success message, right. So in this way you guys can send the request, okay. So it's very simple, okay. So hope you guys are now understanding that whatever we have learned in the concepts here about base URL and HTTP, now you are actually applying that, okay. And slowly and gradually you will going to understand each and everything. So this is where you just have to understand that when with Postman we just send from this part, okay. So at the top box you are saying, so this is where we just set up the request, and then from here we just send the request to the server, and when server gives us the response, so at the bottom you can see this is where the server gives us the response, okay. Now in the body, okay, you can just see it in the raw way and so on, but pretty is basically what we use it in the JSON format, okay. Now what is JSON and all, we will going to discuss that, okay. And these are the cookies headers, and this is by default generated by the Postman itself, okay. So this is basically the response, okay, and in this way we just send the first request, okay, with the postman. Understand about the new concept, that is the JSON, okay, and XML you can say, okay. Now my friends, see, this is basically the world map, okay, and suppose this is, let's say, India, and this is where we have the Russia, or let me just take you with the real world map, okay. Okay, so suppose that we have this world map, okay. Now in this world map you can see there are different countries. Now if you will going to notice, let's say the here we have, let's say, Russia, here we have India, here we have China, right? And similarly there are plenty of different countries. So the problem right now is that the in India people basically they speak in Hindi language, but India people also know the English language, okay. Now similarly with Russia, so in Russia they basically talk in Russian language, but they also know English. Similarly in China they just talk in Chinese, okay, their Chinese language, but they also aware about the English language. So if any country will going to talk in their main language, for example, in India, Hindi is being spoken. So if any Indian will go to the Russia and they try to speak in their Hindi language, so Russians will not be able to understand. Similarly, if Russians will going to try to speak in Russian, okay, in China, so China people or Chinese people will not be able to understand that, okay. So language is a big barrier. But if you will going to notice that English is the language which is spoken in India, Russia, China, and majority of the countries. So English is that language. Even the course which you are listening right now, it's also in English. And maybe if you are from, let's say, different countries, you are watching this course, so you can understand that English is a very common language which is understood and spoken by almost all of them. So similarly, guys, there are many problems. Suppose you can see that we can have, let's say, Python, okay, and Python want to speak with, let's say, Java, okay. We have, the Java language and the Python. So Python language is different and Java language is different. Like like Russia, India, and Chinese people, they all have the different language. So similarly, Python has different language, Java has different language. But like in all these countries, English is the common language. So basically the same we have here with the JSON and XML. So JSON and XML is that language which is understood by all the servers, all the different languages. Basically everything over the internet understand the JSON and XML language. So this is basically what JSON and XML is all about. And here you guys can see basically the JSON looks like this. You can see under the curly bracket, you will going to have your data. Okay. So this is how basically JSON looks like, and majority of the people basically talk about the JSON only. And the time when I'm recording it, JSON is very popular as compared to the XML. Hardly few people use XML, but JSON is broadly used, and this is what we will going to cover in this course as well. So, but just understand the JSON and XML is that language which is being used by all the languages. And if we just talk about the APIs, okay, so API use this language only. So you all know that we just told you about this thing, that API basically connects to application, okay, where the client send the request and server send the response in the form of JSON data. Okay, so this type of data in the form of JSON data, which is broadly used. It can be XML as well. Okay, but JSON is very common. Okay, so this is what this JSON and XML concept is all about. Now guys, we will going to talk about the get. Okay, so this is for the delete one. Let's just click on this plus button. So every time when you will click on this plus button, so it will just going to open the new one. And here again, remember the base URL we do have. Okay, like here, wait, let me just show you. Like here the base URL, new API URL, okay, which we have created. Okay. Okay, so here remember that this was the base URL and the type was put. Okay, okay, and it was for delete. Now similarly we just want the client to send the HTTP request. Okay, and this time we want it to get the information from the server. Okay, so in this case what will going to happen, you all know that till this part this is the base URL. I will just going to copy the base URL. Okay, till this one, and again I will going to paste the base URL. Okay, okay, and after the base URL you all know that we just have to add the endpoint to it. Okay, so what will be the endpoint right now? Let's try, let's say with get. I will open the get, and in the get you can see this is the get parameter. So you just have to write here get. Okay, that's it, and the type will be, that is HTTP method will be get. Okay, so here by default get is selected. Now just whatever URL it is, so just copy this URL and just paste it over here get, and it's saying that again no parameter is required. Okay, okay, no parameter is required. Now the concept which we are trying to teach you here will be about the parameters. Now these parameters, whatever parameters you will going to add, it will all be added to the URL, that is query parameters. Now suppose if I just write here name, now just see the notice here, it's put the question mark name. Now I will put the value. What will be the value? So suppose if I put my name Kunal, so just focus on the URL Kunal. So it is saying the parameter name. Okay, it's one variable and the value of that variable is Kunal. Okay, simply think it like a box. Okay, this variable is like a box. Okay, and the name of the box is name. Okay, and inside this box we have to put something, so we just put Kunal, and that is what it is saying. The name is the variable, and inside this variable we have Kunal as a name. Now just again notice, if I put the second variable, it will just going to put and. See, age, it put and age. My age is 23. What is my height? Okay, so this will again just going to put the parameter height is 5.5, right? So this is basically the query parameters. Query means question mark. Okay, so it will just going to add the question and it will just going to pass all the parameters here, like name, parameter, age and all, right? So this is what it is. Okay, so okay, so you similarly what you guys can do is that in the URL you can also just directly go to the URL. So whatever I will going to remove, it will be removed. So you can just put, let's say, question mark, so you can see automatically this is created. Now I can, let's say, put name. it put the name. So you can also put this here as well, or you can manually write to the you know API URL. Okay, name equals to Kunal. Okay, so basically the query parameters you can just pass after you will going to put the endpoint. So here you just have to put question mark, and then you just have to pass the query parameters. Okay, so this is how the query parameters looks like. Question mark, my name is Kunal, and I will going to put and sign, another one will be created, and my age equals to 23. Okay, then again I will put and let's say status, or let's say active. Am I active? Equals to true. Yes, I'm active, like this. Now if you just try to send it, you can sit pass, and whatever parameters you will going to pass, it will just going to show you in the response. Okay, so you just have sent from the client, that is through the Postman application. You just send the request to the server, and server has written back the response, and you can see in the response, in the arguments, you will just going to find all the parameters you have passed. Active, your age is 23, name is Kunal. That's it. Okay, so this is another thing we just want to teach you about the parameters. Guys, we just taught you about the authentications. Okay, so let me just remove all of them. Okay, so you can even untick any one which you do not want, like I did. Okay, now we are in the same HTTP method. Now in the authentication, there are plenty of authentication type. So I will just go with the, let's say, bearer token. There are plenty of options to authorize, so you can use any one of them, but majority of them go with the bearer token. Okay, which is this one over here, and basically in the token you just have to provide the token which the server has given you. So in our example, we are using HTTP bin, and we have told you the server will only going to give us this API token as well. So you can see that right now the server, the client is asking for the token so that we can just get connect to that server. And we just taught you that we whenever we just use any client, let's say Postman is application, and when we want to connect that to the server, right now we have this as a server HTTP bin. But to connect the server and the client, we require all these things. Okay, it's not mandatory that every time you require the key. Some server will only going to provide you token, or let's say some will only going to provide you key. Some can even provide you both key and token. So it's depend upon the server. So server basically just generate as the token. So right now, suppose the server, that is the HTTP bin, basically this is for the teaching purpose. Okay, so suppose it has generated some token. Okay, basically for teaching purpose, HTTP bin doesn't provide you basically the methods. Okay, but you can just put any URL. Okay, so suppose this is the token. So token looks something like this, with various numbers and some code like this. Okay, so suppose this is our token. Okay, so make sure that right now we are just playing and teaching. Okay, just for learning, we are using HTTP pin, but basically here you just have to put the token. Okay, and the token will going to look like URL or some characters, or the mixture of some characters, words and numbers. Okay, and you just have to paste it. Okay, and when you will going to send the request, you can see that the response is 200. That means the response is successful, and we have successfully, you can see, connected uh, the HTTP bin website to our client. Okay, so this is the power of Postman. So from the authorization, you can just select any type. Okay, so the type you have to select basically as per what the server is providing you. So server, if server is only providing you, let's say, the authentication option is only API token. So in that case, you can just use the bearer token, and whatever the value this server will going to provide, you just have to put that and click on the send button, and you can just connect it. That's it. Okay, so your client and server will be connected. Now they can just easily communicate with each other. So this is all about the authentication. Let's take with another example. So we just told you about the delete get. Now let's just click on this plus button. Okay, now let's just again go to the base URL. You remember, right, that we just have to put the base URL here, and then we just have to put the endpoint so that it will become the API URL. So let's just go with the post one. So I will just going to write post at the end. Awesome, like this. Okay, now this has become API URL, which consists of base URL and the endpoint. Now remember that this is the post, so the HTTP method will be post. So I will just put to the post. Now basically we use the HTTP method, remember, to create something in the server. Okay, for now let's just go to the body, and let's just go with the JSON example, the raw and the JSON. Okay, so I just want to give the information to the server. So in the server I want to just say that what is my ID and my username and what are my hobbies. So I just want to give this information to the server. Okay, so I just want to request the server from my client, that is the Postman, that you have to add this data which I am providing you to the server. Okay, so that server will going to create this data in the server. Okay, now whenever we just talk about the JSON, so remember that every time you can see that whenever you are getting the answer, it's always in the curly bracket, open curly bracket and close curly bracket. Same you can see here as well, open and close curly bracket. So we will just going to put the curly bracket open and click on enter button. It will go to the third line, and suppose I want to add the ID. Okay, so what I will going to do is that in the codes, so you all can see here that you can see the text, you can see the text, like this is the text. So this is inside the codes. Okay, so what I will going to do is that I will just going to, okay, wait, let me just okay, so first will be the ID. So I will put the codes and ID. Now what is my ID? Then colon, and my ID is, let's say, 1. Okay, because this is a number, so in numbers you don't put codes. If you know about the little knowledge about this. Okay, click on first just put the comma, then click on enter button to go to next line. Okay, now another thing is that, let's say, user. So what is the username? So my name is, let's say, Kunal. So it's again in text. So I will just going to write Kunal, and I want to go to the next line. So I will just going to put the quotes at the end. Click on enter. Now what are my hobbies? So I can just, hobbies can be, one person can have different hobbies, multiple hobbies. So I will just going to write here hobbies. Okay, then colon and then space, and then in the big bracket, because this is a list, click on enter. Okay, and in the hobbies, let's say my hobbies is, let's say, programming. Okay, then I want to go to the next line, so comma, click on enter, and my another hobby is reading. That's it. So this is how you just have to write the JSON, you know uh, format. Okay, and of course you can also take the help of ChatGPT. Okay, and you can just say to ChatGPT, like, hey, I want to send one post request, okay, with with let's say id equals to, let's say 1, sorry, oops, sorry, id equals to 1, and shift and enter, the user equals to Kunal, shift and enter, and then hobbies equals to programming and let's say reading. Okay, so you can just say to ChatGPT, click on shift and enter. You can say, so convert above data in JSON. Okay, then click on the send button, and ChatGPT will just going to convert this to the JSON. You can see like this. Now you can just simply copy and you can just paste it here as well. Okay, so both ways I just taught you the way you can just use ChatGPT. Okay, now click on the send button and you can say 200. Okay, success request, and you will going to see all this data here in the data. ID is 1, user is Kunal, hobby is programming and reading. So now this data is basically stored in the server. Okay, so right now we are using the HTTP bin server. So what we did is that as a client Postman, we just send the request HTTP and post. Okay, where we are, so you all know that when we use the post, so we want the server to create something, so that is what we are doing. So with the Postman we are just sending the request HTTP method post method, where we are telling the server to create some data. And I told you that when we send something in the request, so we just share it some parameters, headers and body. So right now we just shared the body, okay, to give the server more information like what it want to is create. Okay, so in the body we just set it to create this id, user and hobbies, and it the server has created something. So basically inside the server, now the server has this information that there is one id 1, there's one user Kunal, and his hobbies are programming and reading. Okay, so this information is now stored in the server. So you can see that from your client, from your Postman, you are basically handling the server, what to create, what to delete, what to update. All these things you can do from the client. Okay. Now we sometimes we want to test, okay, the result, whether what we are just trying to receive, are we getting that or not. So to test anything, you can just use the concept of script. In the script, you will see the pre-script and the post-script or post-response. So you have to go with now with the example of the post-response. And here you can just use some templates like, let me show you. Suppose we want to get, we just want to check whether we are getting that 200 success request or not. So you can put this one, the status code. Now we just want to check the status code is 200 or not. So we want the status code should be 200. Okay, so we just write it here. Now just see the response. If I just click on this send button, so here in the test result it will just going to say it's pass, because we got here 200. And this status code is basically the text which you can see here. You can just write it whatever you want. For example, I can say check the status code like this. Now if you will just going to click on the send button, so you here you can see it's pass, and it's saying this because it's pass with the name check the status code. Basically you can just put whatever name it is, but the main function is here, whatever we want to check the status, so the status is 200. So that is what we want here. Okay, so suppose if I just put here, let's say 201, we want that 201 should come. Okay, so if you will just click on the send button, now it got failed. Why? Because what we expected to have the response 201, we have said that we want 201, and this is what you can see here, the reason. We expected 201, but we got 200. You can see we got 200. So in this way, my friends, you can just test out anything. Okay, very amazing, right? Now similarly, let's say we can just test out some other things. Let's say this one, we can check whether in the content type. Okay, whether in the content type, this content header should have the content type. Okay, in this header we should have this content type. Okay, let's see how it goes. If I just click on the send button, now you can see we got the two results. First one is for the status code, okay, script, and second one is for this one. Okay, so this script says that this content type should be present in the header. That means in the header you can see that this content type should be present in the header. Okay, now let's just go with the third one. Let's say we want to check the how many time it is taking for the API to execute. So that time takes here. So suppose if I just go with this one, response time is less than 200. Okay, so we want that the response time, we just written the text only, that the response should be less than 200 milliseconds. Okay, so it should be below 200. Okay, so it should be below 200 here. Okay, below 200 milliseconds. Now if it will be below 200, so it will show pass, otherwise it will go fail. Click on send button, and you can see the third one, rest first two got pass and the last one got failed. Why failed? Because the time should be 200 but time it took is 1039. So this is what you can see in the result, that expected, uh, we are expected to be below 200 but we got 1039. Okay, so this is the way you can just test out anything, okay, with the Postman. Okay, and suppose if I just say here, let's say 2000, we want that it should be 200 milliseconds. Okay, so here I will just going to say, let's say 2000 milliseconds. Okay, so if that time comes in less than 200 milliseconds, so it will be passed now. If I click on send, you can see the response time is now less than 200 milliseconds and it's passed. Wow, right? So this is how you can just test out anything here with the script. Now guys, we will going to talk about the PostScript more. Okay, so you have till now understood how we can test things. So we can also automate things. For example, what we can do is that we can create one variable. Okay, so just think it like you are just creating one box. Okay, a box. Wait, let me just. Okay, you basically, let's say you or container. Okay, let's say a kind of a bottle. Okay, so that bottle you can say it like a variable. Okay, variable in coding means a bottle. Okay, and inside this bottle, what you want to put is that we want to have this variable as the JSON data. Okay, so basically what we want is that we want all the value which we have got here till now. You can see this is the complete, value we got. So we want it to get stored in this bottle. Okay, so what we will going to do is that we can just say like, JSON data. Okay, and then we can just say equals to, that means this JSON data should be equals to, okay, pm dot response, pm dot response dot json. Okay, dot json. Okay, like this. Okay, Mm, 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 mm. Okay, right? So this is what you have to do. Okay. So what we are trying to do is that we are just saying that we created one bottle name as JSON data, okay, and we want that inside this JSON data bottle we should have all this value. All this value you can see in the response. We want to store this complete value inside this bottle, okay. So that is what we said, that pm dot response JSON. That means this value should be inside this bottle, okay. Now what we can do now is that we can just go here and we can just say console dot log, and then we can just say, or we can just pass this data. So first we are testing whether this is working or not, so that's why we set the console.log. Now if you just click on this send button, so we just have to make sure that in the console it should appear. So you can see that in console that we are getting all this data. That means it's working successfully. Okay, let me just clear it and close it. Awesome. Now I can just remove this. Okay, so basically with this function what we did is that we created one bottle name as JSON data, okay, and inside this JSON data bottle we just put the complete value, whatever value we got here we just put all that value here, okay, that's it. And after that what we can do is that we can just do a lot of things. For example, we can just put pm means postman dot test, okay. We are saying postman to test something, and in the bracket what we can do is that we can just say that json key should be present, okay. We have created one new function, and you can just name it whatever you want, and we want that json key should be present, okay. And for that we just writing this function, okay, okay. And here we can just put pm dot expect. We are just saying postman to expect, okay, postman to expect from this json data, from this json data, okay, dot to dot have dot property, okay, property. And what we want is that we want it to have the json, okay, that's it. This is what we want it, okay, nothing complicated, right. Wait, the json should be in the quotes, okay, right. Something like this. Wait, let me just cross check. Pm dot test json should be present, okay. Function we just put this one and then curly bracket, then pm dot expect json data to have the property known as the json, okay. But still it's showing errors. What we can do is that we can just copy this, okay, like this, and we can always just use the chat gpt, okay. Or wait, let me just try to put the colon, okay. So still it's showing problem. So in chat gpt we can just go and we can just say, hey, I put this script in postman, correct it, okay, like this. Oops, it's showing problem. Let's just create the new one, okay. Okay, so it, you can see that whenever we face maybe any specific problem, okay, and you can just copy this, okay, and paste it over here. Now you can see the problem is solved, okay. Okay, we just forgotten to put this bracket, okay, no problem, but the rest will be same. So what we are just trying to do is that we are just trying to make sure that the json should be present here. You can see this json, we want that in this data, okay, you can see we are just saying to Postman to test whether this JSON is present here or not. We want it to see whether this JSON is present in this data or not. Okay, so we are saying Postman to expect that from this JSON data, okay, so from this bottle, from this complete data, we want Postman to have this JSON element. Okay, let's see. Click on this send button. In the test, you can see that this JSON is available. Why available? Because here you can see this JSON is element is here, that's why. And now what we want is that we want that to see whether the ID is present inside the JSON or not. Okay, so how you will going to do this? Again, same thing, pm dot expect. Okay, pm dot expect. Then what you want? We want that we want the values which we want to expect in the ID. Okay, so we can just say like, in brackets, value of value of ID, okay, should be expected. Okay, like this. Okay, comma, you can just write the function. Okay, and after writing the function, you can just basically put the brackets. Okay, because every time you just do this, we just have to put the brackets. Okay, and in the brackets you can just put curly brackets, and click on enter. Okay, wait, from here just click on enter button. Okay, and now what we want is that we want Postman to expect. Okay, we want again from the Postman to expect that from this JSON data. Okay, okay, wait, okay, everything is good. Okay, from this JSON data, okay, from this JSON data to go to this. See, this is a complete JSON data from first point to the last. This is a complete JSON data. So from this JSON data, we want it to go to this JSON part over here. Okay, so we will going to write here dot JSON. Okay, now further we want to go to this specific ID, so I will just going to put this ID dot ID. Okay, now we want it to dot equals to. Okay, 2 dot equals to. Okay, wait, uh, mm, expect. Okay, everything is looking great. Okay, okay, to be equals to, let's say, 1. Okay, and this is what we want here. Okay, now I guess again there is some problem with the code, so again just go to ChatGPT. Now correct this code. Okay, if there will be some minor error, pm dot expect. Okay, um, okay, everything, let's just copy this one. Okay, but what is the difference basically? Pm dot okay, sorry, here we just forgetting to put the test, right? Pm dot test. Okay, this is what, sorry, we just forgotten, pm dot text. Okay, and with okay, okay, let's just copy the complete one. Okay, like this. Okay, so we want that if you can just remove this thing. Okay, if you don't want. Okay, so everything is now the same thing. Pm dot expect the JSON data to be equals to 1. We want that this value should be equals to 1. Now just see this. Click on the send button. and now you can see that there is the id, okay, and the value of the id is 1. Now suppose if I just put it to 2, now just see there will be problem. Click on this send, and you can see the second one got failed because the we expect it for 1, but we got it the 2, okay. So that is what it is, okay. Basically we expected 2, but we got in the response 1, okay. Now similarly you can just go ahead with, let's say, extra one, okay. Like you can just now talk about, let's say, these hobbies, okay. So how you will going to do same thing, okay. pm dot test, okay, pm dot text, then in brackets you can just name it whatever you want. For example, we want that hobbies should have expected value at index 0. Now index 0 means that we want that the JSON should go to these hobbies. Index 0 means it is talking about programming, and index 1 will reading, and index 2 will be another one, but right now we have only index 0. So index 0 is in first position, so that's why we want it to go with the 0, okay. And then I will just put the comma, okay. Then after that just write the function, okay, the function, and just put the brackets, okay, put curly brackets, click on enter button, okay, like this. And what we want postman to expect, postman to expect, okay, from this json data, from this complete json data, from this complete json data we are saying to the postman that you have to expect from this complete json data. We want to go to the json, specifically to json part, okay, this part. So I will going to put the dot, so that we can only go to this json, and inside json we only want to go to the hobbies part. So I will just going to put dot hobbies, okay, hobbies, exactly this one, okay, dot hobbies, okay. And as you can see, the index we want to go with the 1, okay, sorry, 0 here, okay. So what we will going to put here in the big bracket, it will be 0. Then we want it to have uh, sorry, not here, here, dot 2 dot equal, you can see equal, okay, equals to, in the brackets, let's say, programming, okay. So we want that the index 0 should be equals to programming. Let's say click on this send button, click on this test result, okay, there is some syntax error, what that is I'm not sure. It should go, okay. I guess at the last we just have to close the curly brackets over here. Wait, mm, okay. If it shows any problem, so always you guys can do that, okay. Otherwise no problem. Let's again go to the chat gpt, let's try to fix it, fix this one, okay. mm, okay, so this is the correct one. I will just going to copy this, and I will just going to paste it here. You can just remove this data one, okay, that's it. Now just click on the send button, and now you will going to see the first one we just the third one we pass, because the index is showing here the 0 in the programming, so that's why, okay. But suppose if I just say or put here the reading, so it will just go to the fails. I will just show you, you can see the third one also got failed because it should be equal to programming, but it is basically it should equal to the reading, but we got in the body is programming, right? So basically index 0 should be equals to programming and index 1 should be equals to reading, but here we said that the index 0 should be equals to the reading. This is what we said, but the response we got is that programming. Okay, so this is what it is, by the way. Okay, so that's how you guys can just work around with this. Okay, and this is what it is. Okay, you can just use it for the automation. We're going to talk about the new concept, that is the collections. Okay, now what collections basically is all about. So collection means when you put, wait, let me just write for you. So collections means when you just put all the similar, I can say, APIs to one collection, or a list is known as collection. Okay, so it's like a YouTube playlist. Suppose maybe you go to, let's say, YouTube. Okay, and in YouTube you can maybe search for, let's say, let's say, KuKu courses. Okay, so you can just go to our website, and in the playlist you will going to notice that we have various playlists, and in each playlist we have multiple videos. So this playlist is related to ChatGPT tutorials. Now if you will going to see that in this playlist there are 21 videos. So if you will going to open this, and if you maybe open the playlist, so here you will going to see, here you will going to find all the tutorials that are related to ChatGPT. So same is with the API. So like in YouTube we have the playlist. Okay, so similarly in Postman we have the option of a collection. Okay, so basically in this collection option you can put all the similar API, like in playlist you put all the similar videos inside one playlist. So similarly in Postman we just put all the similar APIs, okay, to one collection. So suppose I click on this plus button and I click on this blank collection, and maybe I can name it, this was related to HTTP bin, right? So I can just put here, let's say, HTTP bin. So this is related to HTTP bin. Okay, so you can see that we got this collection, and now we have a lot of options. Like here you can see post. Okay, so if you will see the post request, and if you want to save this inside this collection, so you have to click on this plus button. You can just name it, for example, let's say, post. Okay, HTTP bin. Okay, so something like this, and where you want to save it, inside this collection. Okay, so you will go inside this collection and click on this save button. Now you will see that inside this collection we have got this request. Similarly you can just do it for others as well. For example, the get one, save it, automatically you can see it's already inside this HTTP bin. Okay, so just go here and save it. Okay, so you can see, and similarly for the delete as well, let's save it, and you will going to notice that whatever API request is not saved, so it will just going to show this orange, you can see that orange dot, so that denotes that this API is not yet saved. Okay, and of course you can just change the name here as well. For example, from here we can name it like a get HTTP bin, like that. Okay, so the name has changed. You can just close whatever you have saved, and for this delete one, just click on this save button, and you can see this teaching is your workspace. Remember the workspace you created, the teaching, and inside this teaching workspace you have created one collection, that is HTTP bin collection, and inside this http bin collection you are just putting the request. Now this is related to delete, okay, htt http bin, okay, that's it. Now you can see that we have one complete collection and you can just create as many as collection you want, okay. Now you can just mark it as a favorite. So sometimes this may happen that you have a lots of collection and you want to work to maybe some specific collection, so you can mark it the favorites. It will just going to show at very top. And if you will just going to click directly on the collection, so you will going to see the settings that are related to collection. If you will going to notice one thing, that in each http request, for example this post one, okay, so it also has all these things like authentications, uh, parameters. And in the collection level also you will going to see all these things like variable, okay, and script. So basically if you will put any settings in the collection level, so that settings will going to apply to all the API request that is inside this collection, okay. Suppose for example if I say, like, let's say my name is, let's say, Kunal, okay. So if you just try to use this same one here, okay, so suppose if I just put here, let's say I want to put value and I want to make here Kunal, okay, sorry, name. So you can see the name is not showing, so it says unresolved variable, because you can see that this value is related to only this API request. But suppose we want that thing to happen throughout this one, okay. For example, I just put the value here, let's say name equals to, let's say, Kunal. Okay, so I just put that in the collection level. If I just save it, now maybe if I just go here and in the parameter, and instead of this, okay, I can just say like name. So you can see name variable. Now the name variable you can see. So why it come? Because we just put that in the collection level. So basically the concept in the collection is that whatever settings you will do in this collection level, if you whatever authentication you will set or anything you will going to do, that will going to apply to all the API requests inside that collection. So that is very powerful, by the way. So this is all about the collection, okay, in for a beginner's point of view. Let's talk about the variables, okay, which is kind of a very much important to understand in the Postman, okay. And this will be probably the last topic, okay. So right now, my friends, always remember that variables can be, you know, collection based, okay, environment based, okay. So these are basically the two ways where you can just use the variable, and of course in the local, okay, and in the data as well, right. So basically variables you can just use it in you know four places. So collections, here you can see it when you will basically whatever collections you have. So if you just go here, you can see this variable feature. And the next option is the environment. What now where you can find environment at the top, you will going to see any environment selected. You can just simply tap here, and here you can just add, or you will see the add option, okay, like this. In my case it's already added, so I can just click on the edit, and from here you can see you can add the variable. And the third option is the local and the data. So we will not going to go with this, okay, for now, because this is just a beginner's guide, so we just want to stick with the main collection and the environment one, okay. So first of all, understand why we use variable. So if you guys will going to notice that in there's one key, okay, we are using, let's say, this key, I'm using this key again and again and again, okay, everywhere. So suppose if this is one API URL, it is asking me that you just need to provide your key, okay, and token. So guys, the problem is that every time you can see I will have to provide this key like this again. Okay, again in the next request, I again have to provide the key here as well. So every single time I need to, provide the API key like this. And as we have mentioned that maybe in future, maybe we change the API key. So at that time, maybe right now we only have a three requests, so not a problem. But if the request list will be let's say 100 of the request, so in every request you will go and manually you will just going to replace the key from the key, okay, like this. So it will be very much time taking, right? It will be very much time taking. So instead of that, we can use variable. We can directly define the variable value, like we can say, let's say access. Okay, wait, let me, okay. Okay. So we can directly define, let's say access, and what we can do is that we can create one new bottle. Okay. It's like a bottle. Variable means it's like a bottle. And in this bottle, you have basically named this variable name as the access. Okay. So you just name this bottle name as access. Okay, that's it. Now you are saying that inside this bottle you want to put some value, okay, because in bottle you can put water, okay, suppose water or any juice. So similarly this is right now the empty bottle, okay, suppose this access is the name of the bottle and this bottle is right now empty, and you need to put some water, or I can say some value to this bottle. So what I can do is that I can just put this key value, let's say here. Now the benefit is that now you have done this, you can just save it from the top. Now the benefit is that you can use this anywhere. That means now suppose I want to change this value here, instead of this I just remove this. Okay, now the key value I can directly, let's say, put the access, just put double quotes, and you can just call this, let's say, access. Now you have directly invited this particular value uh, okay, directly to anywhere. Basically you can just call this bottle, okay, or variable value to anywhere you want. So right now we just invited this to the access here. So now in every request you can just directly, instead of providing the key again and again, you can just directly provide the access here like this. Here also you can just, instead of the key you can just directly provide the access. Okay, so this x whatever variable you call, so that should be in, closing, opening and the closing of the curly brackets here. Okay, so what is the benefit? So suppose in future right now you can see the value, access value is this one. It is starting from 9 2 and it is ending with b1. So suppose in future, okay, you can just save them as well. Okay. Mm, okay, and just save this as well. Now just focus here, the access value is now starting from 9 2 and it is ending with b1. So suppose in future we try to change the value. Okay, so suppose instead of b1, let's say it's b6. Now you have got the new value. Okay, so this value, if you will just click on this save button, now this value will automatically going to reflect to the every place. Suppose if I just click on this access here, now you can see automatically it says 6 instead of 1, right? So this is the power. So basically the variable basically helps you to save a lot of time. It basically allow you to create one variable and it allow you to put one value inside that variable, and that variable you can just call it anywhere. Okay, so that in the future if you want to change maybe any variable, you can directly just change it in the collection level or in the environment level. I will going to talk about the environment level after some time. Okay, but just define that, okay, the variable name, and provide the value to it. And whenever you want to call this variable, you can just call it anywhere, and that will going to work there, okay, like this. So this is basically power. So this will basically going to save your time. So suppose we have changed it to, let's say, right now 9, and suppose if we don't provide this variable thing, so every time you have to go to the every request, and there you just have to provide the new API key. So it can take a lot of time. Right now we only have a 3 request, but if you will go to more professional, you will going to find people have hundreds and hundreds of requests under one collection. So you may need to change every single time, okay, the value for each request. So that's the reason variables save a lot of time. Okay, now if you will going to notice that we have changed this particular value, okay, particular variable in the collection level. So suppose if I just click on this plus button, and if I try to create maybe some new collection, let's say dummy collection, okay, like this. And inside this dummy collection, I can maybe create some value. Let's say I put maybe some XYZ URL, or let's say anything. Suppose this one, okay. Now you will going to find that this access is not coming here. Why? Because you have only passed this variable in this collection. You can see this access value is only in this variable. So sorry, in this collection. So whenever in the collection level, wherever you provide any value, so that value will only going to work under that collection only, okay, or all the requests under that collection. So this is the reason you can see that you have created this. So suppose I just save this request. Let's say it's let's say get dummy one, okay, it's under the dummy collection over here. So basically here you can still see the parameter, it's not showing. So this is what the variable or I can say collection variable is, okay. So collection variable will only going to work specifically for that collection. So whatever value you will going to define here, that will only going to work over all the requests under that collection. So what if you want to bring some values that can work in all these collections? So guys, in that case, we have to use this environment. So environment will basically going to help you to change anything. For example, if I just go and copy this value, okay, and let's say if I just go to the environment, because here it's not working, you can see the key access is not working. So what I can do is that I can just go to environment. In your case it can be add, in my case it's edit. Now suppose I can just put this value here, okay, new value here, and now I can just write access. Now I can save it. Now if you will just go here, you will see it's solved, and the value is now B9, okay. That's very powerful, right? So now whenever you define any variable in the environment level, so in that case, that particular thing will going to apply to all the collections you have, right? Earlier we were only applying to one particular collection, so that setting is only applying to all the requests under that collection. But there can be some situation where you want to apply all this thing, okay, all these settings to all the collections. So at that time, the environment are very helpful. Basically, both do the same tasks. It's just about if you just put that to the variable level, it will only apply to the variable level. But if you put to the environment level, that will going to that setting will going to work in all the collections. That's the only difference, and this is what variable is, okay. Very simple, nothing complicated. And my friends, about this locals and datas, let me just teach you what you can do whenever you just create any collection, okay. So you can basically run that collection from this drop down. You can just run this collection, okay, from here, okay. So that will going to fire. So suppose if I just want to run all this thing, let's say 2 times, okay, you can just run the command line, and you can see all will going to get passed. Here you can see unauthorized. Why it's showing unauthorized? Because the value we have changed here right now. It was, I guess, B2 or what, I'm not sure about that. mm, wait. Mm, it was, I guess, B1 or anything. So okay, it was B1. Okay, so suppose if I just save it. Now let's try to run it again. So basically you can just run this collection as well. Okay. Okay, it's still is showing unauthorized because we changed the request. Okay, the key. Okay, the key, we have defined some different requests, so this is the reason it is not showing that. But keep one thing in mind, my friends. Wait, instead of this, let me just change it to key. Save it. Let me also change this to the key. Mm, sorry, it's token, and it will be the key. Okay. Now what I am doing, you just do not worry about that. Okay. Uh, Here it's okay. Now here we just have to put at the key. That's it. Now let's try to run it again. So basically you can just run all the collection. We will not going to go here right now, so just click on the 2, and you can see now it's showing 200, 200, and get bot, and it has auto deleted that code. Okay, so what it is, we will not going to talk about that, but you can just run whatever request you have under any collection all at once from here, run collection. Now we do not want to go to this automation and all, because these are all the advanced topic and you do not have to focus there right now. But as a beginner's guide, we just taught you about the workspace. Okay, and we just covered about how you can send the request, delete any request, and so on. Okay, and basically in particular case, okay, here you can see we just taught about JSON and XML collections, variables. Okay, a lot of very basic topics. We just taught you about the base URL endpoints, the difference. Okay, and so on. And we also just shared with you the free API guide. So we basically given you a lot of values for free. Okay, so this is what it is. And if you still wants to gain more knowledge about all these things, so it will be my suggestion that basically there are a lot of things, like you can just run the Postman directly from the terminal. Okay, whatever, if you're a window user, so you have a command prompt. If you're a Mac user, you have a terminal. So directly from terminal you can just run the Postman. So these are some advanced things. Now another advanced thing is about the automation and runner, how it's helpful and so on. So all these things are advanced level. So this is the reason, as per the beginner's guide, we just do not want to cover each one of them. And the Trello example you are saying is the real API key. Okay, and in case if you are interested, okay, to learn, let's say, about API and all, and if you want to gain a good amount of knowledge in real practical example how to use the real company API, it can be, let's say, OpenAI. Okay, it can be the OpenAI company. So if you want to just go with the real example, okay, how to use, let's say, their API key with the Postman, or let's say if you want to use Trello. Okay, Trello is a very popular, easy to manage, the theme project. Okay, so if you want to work with, let's say, real life example with this particular API of this Trello with your Postman. So these are some advanced topic, and for that we suggest you guys to just go to KuKu courses, click on enter, just go to this courses. Okay, and once you go there, just click on this courses and just search for API, click on enter, and here you will going to notice we have this 10 hours 30 minutes course, and this course is totally practical. So right now we just covered about the basics, but in this course you will going to cover a lot of things from basic to medium level to at the advanced level about Postman. You will going to learn about the scripts, pre-requests, authorizations, and each and every topic you can basically cover inside this particular course. Okay, and not only this course, if you just see to our website, we have a lot of amazing courses from building website to turning your WordPress into a SaaS business. Okay, with ChatGPT and OpenAI API keys, email marketing courses, and plenty of amazing other courses we do have, like medium course, affiliate marketing course, search engine course, and you can just basically go to more pages and you will going to find a lot of amazing courses we have. And in case if you want to learn really about the OpenAI example with the Postman, so just search for API and you will going to see one course which we have here. which is this one. You can see ChatGPT API and Postman. So if you want to learn about how to use OpenAI API key with your Postman, with the real life example with the Postman, so this will be the course you should go with. So basically all the courses which we offer, you can see it's under our membership. So if you just click on this membership, we have a two plans, yearly plan and the lifetime plan. So in case if you're interested, you can just go with the lifetime plan. Okay, it will just going to cost you $99, and this is what we recommend. And the best thing is that you can get 50% discount in this lifetime plan. So just watch this video and you will get the idea how to purchase this lifetime plan with the 50% discount. Okay, and we also recommend that before you purchase our this offer, make sure you watch this video like you purchase in e-commerce website. The same procedure is, but still we recommend people to watch this video before purchasing. Okay, and also you will come to know how to get 50% discount in this lifetime plan. Okay, so this is what we recommend. We have the powerful library as well, AI tools as well, which you can use for your productivity. But after you will going to get the membership, you can basically be able to access all the courses from our website. And in case in future also, whenever we launch the new courses, you can also get the access to those courses as well. So kind of a very powerful membership website we have at a very affordable price. You can just enjoy the amazing courses we have in our website, and our courses always gets updated. So if you're interested, you can also check out our website. But this is all about how you can just use the Postman. And let me tell you that this is just a beginner's guide. So for the beginners, all these topics are important, which we have taught you. We have just shared the resources with you, how to get the API and what API is. So basically with our free courses, you will, which we have recommended you from our website, so you will basically learn about APIs, okay, what are server clients and API keys and authentications, base URL endpoints, HTTP method, API testing, status codes, and a lot of things we basically taught you, okay, in this free course. And this is basically the enough from the beginner's point of view. But if you really want to go with the real life examples, these courses and the API courses which we have shared you will be a good choice for you. So just make sure that you explore our website, by the way. But this is all about this free course about the Postman.